Welcome back. We are here and ready to continue our Game of the Year discussion. But before we start, got a lovely
Before we start,
bourbon.
oh,
Yes, so this is Rowan's Creek. It's a pretty well-respected bourbon. So these guys, Rowan's Creek Distillery in Bardstown, Kentucky, they also make Noah's Mill. That's another one that they're well known for. I prefer Noah's Mill, but this is another one they do that's really good. This is 50%. Noah's Mill is a little more, I believe. This is definitely, both are very unique for bourbons, though. Both definitely have flavor profiles that don't match up with your standard bourbon. This is a little bit closer, but still both.
it's definitely not as spicy. Do you have Noah's Mill down here?
Yeah, I do.
Oh, great.
We're gonna finish that off. Cheers.
I do love Noah's Mill.
Yeah.
This is also very good. You're right. It's closer to a more traditional bourbon, but still a lot of spices happening here.
Yeah, that's definitely their thing. And they, I don't know how they do it within the bourbon laws. It's very unique for a bourbon. Most bourbons have at least some semblance of similarity because of how strict the laws are. But yeah, it's good stuff. Me gusta mucho.
I like it quite a bit. All right. So the last, section of this video, or maybe not at all, if you're just watching the sort of segmented upload, was all about our year in gaming, just sort of generally. Because the whole point of this podcast is to share games. We share what we love with who we love. But we do love games, and we keep up with new trends, new releases as often as possible. And we played plenty of those this year. So the next probably couple of hours, let's be real, is just going to be about what came out, what we played of what we came out in 28. I almost said 2018.
Yeah, that's what we talked about
because I'm still
last.
talking about the still thinking
about Tetris Effect.
Yes, definitely. 2021 is what I mean. So I'll go ahead and get started here, as I guess is tradition.
It's now tradition.
It is now officially tradition. We'll be talking about soundtracks and music this year. Now, if you watched our Game of the Year discussion or listened to our Game of the Year discussion last year, that was much more involved. I think last year is one of the best years, for video game soundtracks in a very long time, possibly ever. I do think two of those are in the upper echelon, and then two other ones are just absolutely fantastic in their own right. This year, not so much. I think this was a little lacking in comparison, but still great soundtracks. Though we're going to cut the discussion back a bit and just talk about my favorite soundtrack this year, which was, and Zach has a runner-up as well, which is Sable. If you know me, it's not a surprise, and just based on our discussion last week, it's probably not a surprise either. Sable is, first of all, the music is right up my alley, and I'm sorry if it seems like I'm a little biased. That might be true. That might definitely be true. But it, I talked about how its main three pillars are working together to elicit the sort of emotions that are what, at least I consider to be the best parts of Breath of the Wild, Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. The soundtrack is one of those pillars. The music and the soundscape in general is one of those pillars. And it's just so, again, I said earlier I was going to overuse this word, serene. It just adds to the visuals and the kind of gameplay. It's a very loose sort of game. It is from Japanese Breakfast, and I also talked about one of my favorite moments earlier as you sort of exit the starting area, the tutorial. That song, Feels Like Flying, is amazing. But what I think at least my favorite track from there is the Burnt Oak Station, which you will hopefully hear if you hopefully if you play the game, you'll hear it. But I'll play a little bit for you right now. So that was Burnt Oak Station, and I just remember walking up to Burnt Oak the first time. The way I sort of came upon it was just walking around a tree. You start to hear it creep in very slowly. The music, and I say creep, it's very joyful, but you hear it start to sort of sneak into the previous track, which is just general desert exploration. I think it was in the daytime. And then they start to blend together like probably like you see in a lot of games, but I really heard about how this is done with Grand Theft Auto 5. The way every sound has a range and they start to bleed into each other, and then each of them have a value of which sound is more important. So as they bleed in, one of them has is a little louder than another. So it's sort of doing that as you move into different spaces and do different actions here in Sable as well. So I just gotten finished exploring some tree, and then I climb down. I'm not on my bike. I walk around the tree into Burnt Oak Station, and I just see this music starts rising, and again, it's very joyful. And it was just such a sweet little time, and it's a sweet little place as well. I think it's intended to be the first place you visit. There are definitely markers on the map that you can make, but that's something very nice. What's a little runner-up that you had in your pocket?
Yeah. So this is a soundtrack that, while not technically from this year, transcends time and space, and that's Shadow the Hedgehog from
Get
2005.
the hell out of here!
It's
You
crazy
crazy lunatic.
transcendent. There's this just, as you walk up to Burnt Oaks. I don't know. It's
What are you talking about?
Shadow the Hedgehog is
One of the worst games ever made.
the best soundtrack of all time. I will.
Okay.
That's our runner-up for this year, only because Tyler wouldn't let me put his number one, because he has a small brain, small mind, closed to the wonders of Shadow the Hedgehog's soundtrack, which are transcendent. Really, I have never felt such euphoria, and never will again.
Oh. But this year was a great year for something else in
Like how we
video
just
games.
moved on right there. So
Yes,
cleanly.
immediately. Specifically with soundtracks, and that is lyrical music written specifically for games. Usually only get a couple of those a year, but I feel like this year was a pretty big one. There's a few tracks in Sable, at least 2, possibly 3. There's like 4 or 5 in Backbone. Then you've got the few that are in The Artful Escape. Then there's that runner game, Air something. I don't know, it's like a hip-hop runner game. Dang it.
Oh,
I forget.
I don't remember the name.
That was a good one, though. That was a really good one. But I think one of the best tracks this year, even more so than probably anything in Sable, I think one of the absolute best tracks this year is from Backbone, that little point-and-click adventure I talked about last week. And that's a track called The Warmth of My Parents' Hands.
Driving me sane, driving me home, crawling through the wind. I've been crawling through words. Life was morning to morning to morning, revoltingly same.
It's just so sweet. I absolutely love it, and that's the cut from the trailer. You can listen to the full thing on the soundtrack. So that's only about 45 minutes. It's 45 seconds. I think it's about a 4-minute song. And there's a few original jazz tracks in there. Some stuff that gets pretty dark, like dark jazz. I don't really know how to describe that, but it's not particularly joyful. It does get into some angry emotions. And yeah, that one's just, I was blown away when I heard that, when I watched that trailer. But we have The Warmth of My Parents' Hands from Backbone.
Title. Great title for a song.
All right, take us away with the next segment here.
Yes, so this is the best game you didn't play in 2021, which is just kind of our initial caveat, if you will, for why isn't this game here? Why isn't that game here? We are not an outlet, and therefore full outlet, so we can't cover everything that comes out. We play what we want to play, and even the things we want to play, we don't even make time for sometimes. So the first one is pretty obvious. I'm pretty sure Outer Wilds Echoes of the Eye, based on our previous discussion, would be our potentially number one pick of 2021. If we
Probably.
played it. But we intentionally left it, actually. This is the only one we intentionally left by the wayside. Since Outer Wilds' experience, you can really only have once.
And we only did it this year. You know, if we had played it around launch, we would play Echoes of the Eye this year for sure.
But I think it's just, I want to save that experience for a time I need it. So that was passed over. Tales of Arise was one. We were debating between Shin Megami Tensei 5 and Tales of Arise, essentially. And we went with Shin Megami Tensei 5, but that doesn't mean we're bummed. Not bummed that we missed Tales of Arise.
Yeah, because SMT5 is pretty great. You liked it way more than I did. I didn't think it was bad, but I got my fill. The story certainly did not drive me through, and there's a lot more to play. So I probably played half of it or so. I can't say if I would have rather played Tales, just because I haven't played Tales, so I don't know. But I had a good enough time with SMT5. Glad I played it. I definitely wouldn't reverse that. I think one for me. This one's really just for me. That is a weird little game called Umurangi Generation. So this actually came out in 2020, like the very end of December on PC, and then I think it came out on everything else this year. So well past our time for inclusion, because we didn't have this indie catch up. Yeah, that's kind of one of the things it's intended for. So we'll do it next year, but that was not the case. So it wasn't really eligible. And also I didn't know about it. But Umurangi Generation is sort of a punk photography game. It really is a photography game. You can tell people to, get in different stances and stuff, and you're commissioned to take particular kinds of photographs in a sort of, I think this is what it's going for. I've only seen a few trailers. It's like some maybe European socialist society. It's nearing some sort of apocalypse, probably. It's definitely under military rule. And you're just trying to live your good, young, best life and party and take pictures. And that's basically the game. Also, the art style is amazing. When I say it's a punk game, it does seem like those are some of the themes they're going for. But also
like counterculture.
Yeah, I can't think of a game that looks as punk as Umurangi Generation. It really is doing something pretty unique. I don't think the particular art style is unique. We've seen it several times before, but this implementation of it it's a punk video game, and I think it looks really cool. And also just the themes, the mechanics. That's me. So I'm going to hopefully find time for that sometime soon this year.
Another one you mentioned that you're bummed we missed is Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yes.
Which is an odd one for you to say that you're bummed for. I was a little surprised, but a lot of the people we like to follow praised it very highly, near the top of their best of the year lists, particularly for the narrative, and just it's short enough to where a lot of its more generic beats don't outstay their welcome.
And the visuals and the soundtrack, all of it except for the combat seems to be absolutely stellar.
Yeah, it's
and we wrote it off. It's not even that we missed it. We were just wrong about it.
Yeah, we were just like, well, I know what this is going to be.
We could have slotted it in somewhere, I'm sure, but
based on Avengers 2, we were
that's
like,
it.
we know what this is, but we did not know what this is.
And I think that was true for a lot of people. We just didn't have time to sort of backtrack and make time for it, but that seemed to be the general consensus when we first heard about it.
Yeah, I agree. nobody had much confidence. But I'm glad it turned out to be pretty good, apparently. So
Absolutely.
that's what we missed. So we're going to move on to our official categories again, moving back in.
We
And
are.
we're going to start with Best Sequel. Best Sequel.
There have been a few this year.
There have.
A few really interesting choices here as well.
Yeah, there's a lot of new IPs as well, but we're going to start with some best sequels. Go ahead and take it away with number 3.
Number 3. This was a big surprise for me. I had never played a Ratchet and Clank game, so this was the first one. I had really never even had any experience with Ratchet and Clank, but this one is just pure fun. It's not doing anything particularly special, I think, except for the introduction of Rivet. Not really even her implementation, how you just change characters and they have the same loadout. I just mean the character of Rivet. She's great.
Her design is
kind of don't ever
incredible.
want to play a Ratchet game. I just want to play Rivet. I think she's fantastic. She also is more of a character than Ratchet. Maybe at some point Ratchet had a character arc.
Early Ratchet had a character arc.
Okay.
Absolutely. 100%. He's been very sterilized ever since the reboot. We've used that word a lot, but that's the best word for it.
Sure.
All of his rough edges have been smoothed out.
Yeah.
So
That's not the case with Rivet. And I fell in love with her immediately and had so much fun mixing and matching those weapons. Like, you've all done this before. This might not be anything new for anyone who has played Ratchet before, especially the last one, because I hear they're pretty similar. But for me, just so much fun. It looks incredible. Absolutely awesome. Feels fantastic. And I would happily go play it again. It's so short, too.
yeah, it's very short. It's nice.
Yeah, I'd happily
More
play
of
it
those
again.
things. Number 2 is a 3. Hitman 3, particularly. Both Tyler and I felt this game didn't quite live up in some regards to Hitman 2, but it's still a very good sequel. A lot of things done right here.
And a lot of things done better than the other two, but overall.
Yeah,
It's just the
overall.
overall package.
And it's because of the more narrative focus.
Yeah.
That's what we
The
would
ending, the first level, not that great.
say. But, I mean, some of these... Dartmoor goes as probably my... tied for my favorite location.
Chungking is really awesome.
Chungking's awesome. Yeah, so lots of good locations. And a great send-off for this. Honestly, this trilogy is, as a whole, is something you've talked about as very special. It will never be done again. There's nothing like it.
Yeah.
And
I really hope this year we get sort of a box set, or not even a box set, just one disc with the entire trilogy on it, because they've built
Ooh,
a
and
platform.
disable the online requirement. Ooh, your boy would be happy with that.
That would be nice. Do you need to be connected?
To level up, and yeah, you do.
Oh, so do you get anything for leveling up?
Yeah, that's where you unlock your new starting locations, new weapons.
Oh, all of that is tied with leveling up.
Yeah, with online.
What?
Their final update for that game better be like, but then if you buy it and you try to download it and the servers are offline, you'll never be able to, level up. It's dumb. You should just remove that requirement.
Yes. But because it's a platform, like at this point, they're almost not even separate games. I'd like to see a package that contains
They're
all of
meant
them.
to be played all 3. If you haven't watched it, watch Super Bunny Hop's take on the trilogy. He gives a very good reason why it should be played as a whole experience.
And there might be some sort of complication with selling it as one package because WB owns the other two, or did they maintain
I don't
full
know.
rights to 1 and 2?
I really don't know.
Okay.
But Hitman 3, it's fantastic. What's number 1, Tyler?
Number 1, huge surprise for me. I am not particularly a Resident Evil fan. I played Resident Evil 2 with Zach last year. That was a great share. A near perfect game.
Yeah.
If not perfect. I don't think I can say anything bad currently. I'd have to really think about it. And I played 4 and 5 back in the day. So that's really the only experience I've had until 2. 4 and 5 were. We played 7 just because 8 was a direct sequel. 7 was pretty good. And Zach was telling me a little bit about 8 and did not think I was going to like it very much at all. I absolutely love this game through and through. Resident Evil 8 Village. It's just so much fun.
Yeah.
And the opening sequence, it was on my list. It didn't make the short list, obviously, but on my list for best moments, the first big encounter with the werewolves, I think, is so perfectly paced. And maybe I got lucky choosing particular paths, finding the shotgun when you do, and then the introduction of the big werewolf guy. I don't know his name, but the werewolf boss. Oh, and also the werewolves are just really cool in this game.
Yeah, it's a good take on the werewolf.
Yeah. Anyway, that whole set piece, absolutely amazing. Then of course we've got the dollhouse, which its inclusion in the game I think is pretty weird. I think it's impeccable. One of the best little horror experiences you can have. It dropped in the middle of this game is very weird. But I like the disparate sort of genres of horror that are all throughout the game, that are all tied into the mechanics and just the whole layout. I think it's great. It's really, I think it is pretty unique, actually.
I agree.
I'd happily play it again. It's probably my favorite. No, Resident Evil 2. Resident Evil 2 is
yeah,
the
I'm
best.
with you though. It's my second favorite Resident game.
We haven't. Neither of us have played 3. Of course, it's not going to hit as hard as Resident Evil 2, but Uncharted 3 doesn't hit as hard as 2.
Sure.
Doesn't mean it's worse.
Yeah, I'm excited to play it. I've played 1 remake, 2 remake. I've played most of 4, most of 5, and then
not touched 6,
and then 7.
I'd happily play 6.
I'm so excited to play 6.
Yeah, we've got a weird, nonsensical episode lined up with that.
It's gonna be incredible.
It's gonna be a weird one. I don't even know why I wanted it to happen that way.
But purple.
Sure, maybe
it's purple.
Maybe that's it. But RE8 number 1. All right,
best new IP. So let me read out kind of a clarification here.
Yeah.
I wrote this because it's kind of a weird category, but this isn't the best game that was a new IP, but the best new IP as a whole. Something unique, original, exciting, something that you want to see more of, and the developer will probably do more with. So think 2019. This is the best example. Sekiro was my game of the year, 2019. Probably going to change now that I played Outer Wilds, but Sekiro was my game of the year when it came out. But I would say Death Stranding was the best new IP. I don't know if Kojima will do more with it. I doubt it, but there's a lot of room there. The world itself is very engaging. The gameplay style has so much room for iteration.
I hope he never does another sequel.
Me too.
I hope everything he does is just a one-off for the rest of his career.
Me too. Totally agree. But that being said, you got to get the sense, though, right, like of what we're going for with this category. And so we actually have a top 3 here. I'll start with number 3, a game that we have talked very poorly about. Very negatively about, rather, and that's Deathloop. Despite all of our, negative responses to Deathloop, the space they've created, the ideas, the overall feel of the game, like we said before, all of the parts should add up to something amazing for us. So all the pieces are there. There's potential to make something really special with them. We just don't think.
I do get it, but it could be so much more because they're capable of so much more. This is like baby's first Arcane game, but from the perspective of those developing an Arcane game. It's so much less than the games that have come before. At least in recent years, we've not played Arx Fatalis.
I was about to say, I would rather play Arx Fatalis than this game.
Yeah.
Like, this game will be cleaner, will feel nicer, will be more responsive, have better a feel to gameplay.
But at least Arx Fatalis is interesting.
It has so many good ideas. And a kick that is so...
Oh, is there beautiful. A kick in Arx Fatalis?
I think there is, yeah.
I know there is in...
Dark Messiah.
Dark Messiah.
No, I just made a joke. I don't know if there's a kick in Arx Fatalis.
Oh.
Yeah, there should always be a kick, though.
Well, the kick comes from Dark Messiah.
Oh, it does, and it's the best kick in gaming.
It's very good.
I haven't even played that game, and I can tell
there's a lot good with Deathloop, but
it even has a decent kick.
Yes, the best kick probably. Probably better than because they made that game as well.
We don't speak sacrilege here, Tyler. I'm just kidding. I've never played it. But they
took a lot of ideas from things they've done in the past. The kick, of course, they brought that back. They brought the sort of dashing back, the abilities you get from Dishonored, and then trying to do a little bit just to introduce like new people to the immersive sim genre, but the stuff you're able to do there is so lackluster. Like, sure, you can do more than Call of Duty, but that's not saying much. That just means you can walk off of a path.
You can drop a turret somewhere and then like, trick someone into walking into it.
Yeah, and I don't mean to disparage Call of Duty. I've not played Call of Duty in years. I know you can pick up turrets in Call of Duty, or I think so in the modern ones. So, yeah.
But it's different.
It's very different.
The AI isn't tuned to respond in the way that they would in Deathloop, is what I'd argue.
Well, they don't respond in Deathloop.
You can get them to do stuff.
Dude, the AI is trash in Deathloop.
It is, but you can
I bet Call of Duty is better.
Interesting. I can get them to do what I want in Deathloop, though, pretty consistently. It's just the stuff
Yeah, you can get them to do what you want because they're not smart.
Oh, yeah, that's what I mean. They're terrible. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think the AI is probably like it's a real opponent.
I get what you're saying. I wasn't saying it was a good AI.
Like the AI...
The AI responds to different inputs than a Call of Duty AI. Like, they're more responsive than a Call of Duty AI. There are more inputs. That's all I was trying to say. There are more inputs to that.
They're just the dumbest lemmings.
Yeah, and then compare it to Prey's AI.
Yeah.
That is aggressive.
There's no comparison.
And scary, and like, the Typhons.
They're not even the same league.
Yeah. It feels like different. Yeah, it's crazy.
It's a solid foundation for a sequel. God forbid they make a sequel to this game. But
or if they do, maybe like go the full immersive sim route with it, like totally undercut everything. Maybe this is them trying to nobody.
This is a trick. This is a trick.
Like nobody liked Prey. Let's wean people slowly into this.
Yeah. Hopefully,
everyone should like Prey. That game's fantastic.
Yes.
It grows on me more every day.
Very special. Very, very special.
So our number 2 pick for Best New IP is one pushed pretty heavily by me, which is The Medium. The Medium, I think, represents a lot of good ideas. Again, I felt like it was a detective game. And you are filling the role of the detective. You're not truly doing much detective work, but you're filling the role of the detective. The game is trying to get you in the headspace of bridging these two realities, and I think it succeeds incredibly. A lot of great characters. I compared it to something like, Guillermo del Toro's Troll Hunters, where every 3 episodes there's a brand new idea, like pulling the rug out from what you thought. And the whole first, half of The Medium's doing that. Like every hour or two, there's a brand new idea, kind of undercutting what you thought. Especially with Thomas, I think a great character. So,
yeah, the introduction of Thomas is pretty great.
Oh, it's probably one of my favorite moments in the game. And really every moment with him is one of my favorite moments in the game.
Yeah.
There's a cliffhanger at the end. Obviously, they want to do more with this story.
I want to like her so much more.
Me too. I feel the same way.
She's just not there.
Yeah. Maybe they could do more with her in a sequel, though.
Maybe.
I think this space and this kind of take on what I would call foundationally an adventure detective video game. That's what I think this game is at its core. I think there's a lot there, and I think it's a really strong IP.
I agree. However, I don't think we'll see another one.
I don't think we will.
I am a conspiracy theorist at heart. I do believe this is the showcase for
proof that they can do.
Yeah, I mean, it's Silent Hill through and through. The gameplay is you're doing Silent Hill. It's got some parts that are not so great. So does Silent Hill, though.
Yeah.
Like the demon part. He's terrible.
Ugh,
he's so bad.
So bad.
In The Medium, that is. But the colors are like Silent Hill. The effects of the ashes as they burn away. You mentioned that effect was introduced in Silent Hill in the movie, and then they did it in every other game because they thought that was such a great visual language.
Yeah.
Right? They're doing that here. So the colors in and out of the spirit realm. It's Silent Hill.
It's an otherworld. Like, it's just.
But the visual language is so similar to Silent Hill, and then the gameplay. They have mastered the gameplay, the tank controls. I really think this was their tech demo for a Silent Hill remake.
Well, I mean, I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
You know how I feel about Silent Hills, so...
Yeah. So that's what I think is going to happen. Not a Medium 2.
What's
Happy
your
to be
number
proven wrong. Number 1
Obvious choice.
is pretty obvious. Well, it might not be obvious yet, but it will be soon. That's Returnal. Returnal is a step in a new direction for a developer that I haven't played many of their games, but I've always paid attention to them, and that is Housemarque.
We both just picked up Nex Machina on PS4 during the limited run sale.
Yeah, because I missed it. I wanted it for quite a while.
Thank God it was still there.
Nex Machina is fantastic, but so are there other games. On PS3, you've got Super Stardust. That one's fantastic. They're all twin-stick shooters. That's what they do best. They are... I mean, Nex Machina is definitely a twin-stick shooter. What's the one on PS4? Resogun. That's a different take on
fun.
the arcade game for them.
Did they do Outcast or Outlast? Or
Outland.
Outland.
Yes,
they did Outland. That's 2D.
Yeah, that was an interesting take on there. Actually, in a similar vein to Returnal, was sort of doing something with that arcade bullet hell style gameplay
in a new perspective.
In a brand new perspective. So it being a 2D Metroidvania, but also a bullet hell, was very interesting. Oh, and like Ikaruga. I mean, they straight up did Ikaruga Metroid. It's really
Which
great.
is a great idea.
Yeah. With an aesthetic, I mean, it's presented a little differently, but it feels like you're in the forbidden land of Shadow of the Colossus. It's a really interesting game.
That's probably my favorite place in video games. Forbidden Land. I think it is.
Absolutely. And then maybe the...
And then Talon 4 and Metroid Prime. That's another one that's right there for me.
Pretty much anywhere in the entire galaxy of Outer Wilds.
Oh, yeah, of course.
That's way up there.
Of course.
But anyway, Returnal is a step in a new direction. A couple years ago, they had an interview on the Game Informer podcast just after Nex Machina, or maybe it was just after Alienation, but Nex Machina is the much more well-known game. And they said that they kind of have to be done with arcade games. They are not able to sustain themselves with arcade games like Nex Machina. I don't think it was a super successful game for them. So they had to move on.
What a shame.
And Sony has always given them the chance. They've been making games on Sony platforms for a couple decades. So they really stepped up, gave them the chance to make something great here. And you've heard a lot about it already. You're going to hear more about it soon. Returnal is something special. And they really achieved pretty much everything they were going for. Aside from it's different, well, I won't even say it's a bad thing, but I can't think of a negative thing in Returnal. I think it's a
really
near perfect
strong.
package.
Yeah, it's really strong. And the world, the idea, the way you move, the way combat works, the loop itself, all very strong.
How would you do a sequel
a different
to Returnal?
character?
Just a different character?
Different character, same loop. Yeah. I'd say I know you can't do this, but literally the same environments.
No way.
I know you can't, but what you could do story-wise with that, because you can then bounce it off of what you know about Celine's story and then compare, okay, well, why did it change for this person? Maybe start throwing in some weird stuff, start crossing the loops, or I don't know. There's some weird stuff you could do. But no, it would be different environments, maybe a different fantasy this person is in. It could be anything. It doesn't have to be restricted to this planet. You know what I mean? There's a lot of things you can do. It's an interesting space they've built with this game. I don't think
sort of a mechanical sequel, not a narrative sequel.
Yeah. I think it'd be best to do a mechanic sequel based on the way the story ends and those kinds of things. I think.
Yeah, you definitely couldn't do something with Celine, but even on the same planet in a similar loop, maybe not there. But
no, I think it would
just the
based
foundation.
on what I know about the lore, it would have to be somewhere else. Have to be. But regardless, that doesn't matter. You can make whatever game you want, right? So I would like to see them do something really outlandish, because this format, this bullet hell meets third person action shooter game, is fantastic. Like, and all the little pieces that the way that you progress through the environments, the kinds of pickups and persistent upgrades, the way that works is very clean, very good. The movement's fantastic. Maybe do like a sword and sorcery version. Like, that'd be awesome. There's so many things you can do on this kind of style they've built.
That would be very interesting. You'd have to change it visually, but if everything were like wand effects and wizards casting spells, like instead of a giant X of all of these, spherical bullets, it could be some sort of AoE effect, like, from Dumbledore or something, like the battle with Dumbledore and Voldemort in the fifth movie.
That's the coolest wizard battle.
You could do something like that, I suppose.
Yeah. So like, those kinds of ideas, like what the underlying foundation they've built is so open because of what the lore of the game signifies. Like, it's so open what you can do with this. And then you just take the roguelike third person bullet hell style kind of thing, and you can make a lot of stuff with this.
I think so. So we've noticed a few trends this year, and one of them that we picked up on pretty quickly was games about moving on, passing on, rather. I'm going to let Zach take it away with...
These aren't in order. We can
this entire segment. Just take it away, man.
Yeah, I noticed a lot of games.
Let's get a new one, though.
Let's do Noah's Mill. So same distiller. But this is definitely, in my opinion, their more unique bourbon. This is going to have so much sarsaparilla on it.
Sarsaparilla.
Yeah.
What even is sarsaparilla?
Think root beer. It's
Okay.
one of the primary flavors in root beer. But Rowan's Creek is 50%. This is 57%. This is a big boy whiskey.
It's also very spicy.
Yeah, it's very spicy. A lot of that going on. It's a really, really yummy whiskey. One of my personal favorites, actually. I'd put this in my top 5 bourbons, I think. I really like it.
I don't have as much as you do, but it's up there for me.
Yeah, this is fantastic.
It is one of the best I've tried.
So, games about passing on. These are games about death or, life after death. Or, those kinds of things. I mean, I'll just list some of them off here back to back. You got Inscription. All of, some, I won't go too into spoilers, but it is about the end. It's about the end. And then, of course, you have Everhood. The entire game is built on the theme of the significance and importance of death. That's the whole take of the game, why death is so important. Fantastic. The Medium, obviously, you're literally a bridge between life and death. The whole first scene when you're helping your father move on. You're both getting him ready for burial in the real world, and then in the spirit realm, getting him ready to move on past the holding place of the spirit realm. Your physical actions in the physical world reflect what you're able to do for him in the spirit world. Like, it's very cleanly done. I think that's my favorite part of the whole game, actually, if I really think about it, is the opening.
It's very strong.
Death's Door, again, about a bunch of people who are afraid to die. The bosses are all afraid to die. You're a little Grim Reaper. That's what you do. It's that's really good. Moondawn is about death, curses, these things. All of these games, and every once in a while you'll get people, talking about death and dealing with the idea of death, but it's rare to find this many where you can just list them off, where developers are thinking about death. Why? How? Should? Really big, scary questions, and putting them into perspective in a place that if you talk to any Joe Schmo on the street, won't think a video game about death. Like, that sounds sad. Why would I do that? Like, aren't video games just for fun? And it's a special place to talk about them because it's, not only is it an interactive medium, but it's a medium with so many people working to create it and bring these things to life. It's a really special place to talk about it. So I'm glad that was a trend this year.
Yes, a pretty big trend.
Go ahead. What do you got?
So I noticed a bit of a trend this year because of the current state of the world. COVID has pushed so many titles back, so many big name titles. We've heard barely anything about Breath of the Wild 2, both God of War and what is it?
Horizon?
Horizon were pushed back. Halo only came out a month ago. We've got what else was pushed back?
Dying Light.
Dying Light was pushed back. That comes out next month, I think. Yeah, big triple and the AAA
Silk
games
Song
we
will never
did
come
get. Yeah, sure. AAA games that we did get were pretty good. We didn't get many big name AAA games. I think, of course, they're the yearly entries, but we had from Square Enix. Guardians of the Galaxy, and inexplicably, Balan Wonderworld.
Oh, that'll show up later. No,
That
that's
will
not
show
true.
up later.
That's not true at all.
No, it will not. Yeah, sure, we can talk about a trend with that game. You know how I feel about that. But that'll be I'll put that somewhere else on this list. But anyway, we had Forza, of course. That comes out every other year. We had Deathloop from Bethesda and Microsoft. There was a handful of notable big AAA games, but mostly the really, really good and notable stuff, I think, came from the sort of the tier below that. The sort of middling in terms of development size, that is. Teams. Things like Cana, Hot Wheels, Medium, and Returnal, those are both smaller teams. Psychonauts, that's a small team. And I know that these were all funded by the respective platform holders. It Takes Two, that is a smaller team. EA is backing it. But it's not the big, nearly $1 billion sort of enterprise like a lot of these massive games are. I say nearly $1 billion, 200 million or so. It's not what we're working with here with Psychonauts and Returnal. 500 million with something like, what was it? Destiny was like more than 300 million.
A lot of money.
Yeah, all of these games are smaller teams, but like really, really solidly crafted performance. Experiences. I would even put Hitman 3 in that list. That is a self-published game. They broke away from the publisher with who was it? WB Games. I think it was WB, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So broke away. IDOS did it themselves.
IO.
And thank you. Yeah.
We were just talking about
Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah.
But just a couple of years ago, you had A Plague Tale, Hellblade. Those are both
not played A Plague Tale.
I don't know, dude. Both of those games are in the absolute upper echelon of presentation in video games. Like right there
I
with.
was watching a clip from Hellblade the other day, and I was just like, "How does this look that good?" It's insanity.
Because it's motion capture. It's their own method of motion capture. They have like their own tech that they made. They made their own rig. Nobody else is using it. But they basically overlay. It's not just motion capture. They're capturing her face and then like filtering it. So almost like a weird take on like rotoscope animation, I think.
Okay.
Like they're filtering things on top of her actual face, not just the skeleton of her face like you would do with
normal motion capture.
With normal motion capture, I think. It's been a while since I watched that documentary. But anyway, the point is, we're not asking. I don't think anyone is explicitly asking for the industry to constantly push itself. And next year is going to be another example of that. God of War is going to go down as, if not one of the games of the year. And it's just going to be more God of War. It's not going to look particularly better, if better at all. It's going to run just fine on the PS4. Those trailers look exactly the same, and nobody is going to care. No one's going to care that they didn't make the jump from Last of Us, or let's say Uncharted 4 to Last of Us 2. That only happens like once a decade. And that's totally fine. I think this year is such proof for major publishers that we do not need $500 million enterprises. Look at Kena, The Medium, Returnal, Psychonauts. These are all super successful games. And that you don't need that. And I'm happy that because of all of the things being pushed back from major publishers, we got to really see this stuff shine. Because if The Medium came out couched between Horizon and God of War, no one would talk about The Medium. Well, I mean, no one's talking about The Medium anyway, let's be honest.
Shame.
Returnal. No one would mention Returnal if God of War came out this year.
Which is a shame.
Yeah. But hopefully that is not the case moving forward. Now that we know we've had an entire year where that's the only thing the light can be shown on because of all of these delays, we can sort of keep that moving forward, keep a better eye on those lesser productions, I guess. I'm not talking about straight up indie games. You know, it's going to be hard for someone to consider what is it called here? Everhood. You know, the general audience to consider Everhood over Deathloop. But maybe now, after all of this, we can get the general audience to be a little more accepting of something like It Takes Two and The Medium when considering their game of the year. Because that was the majority of this year. That's all. And it might not have been phrased as well as I wanted to, but that's the gist of it.
It makes sense. Next trend that we saw is difficulty. We see this every year. It's not a new category. It's not a new idea.
Well, we see the discussion every year with one big game. You know, we're going to see it next year. Everyone's going to be talking. Wow, that really burns.
Yeah,
that gets you if you don't drink it right. Everyone's going to be having this discussion next month, or I guess, next month with Elden Ring. It happens every time there's a Souls game that comes out. Happens every time there's a super crazy difficult game. But this year, it was a trend, definitely.
Yeah, and it's from developers you don't usually expect it from. I think that's what really stood out to a lot of people. For example, we have Metroid Dread. That's one of the big ones this year.
Mm-hmm.
The difficulty of Metroid Dread really turned a lot of people off, and it's from a series that's not known for being that difficult typically. Even on hard modes.
Yeah.
Like it's pretty usually a breeze. So, you know, that's a big one for a lot of people. You mentioned Hot Wheels.
Hot Wheels is surprising. I mean, it's a good game all around. That's one of the biggest surprises. But the physics make it crazy difficult. Not bad. I don't think it's bad, but everything you do needs to be so precise. Like if you get bumped into the side of a wall, you're going to start to sort of skid out, and you've lost a lot of speed there because your tire has just hit the wall, and now you've got a loop coming up. You better have boost to get back to that top speed. If you don't, you will not make it across that wall. Across that loop. And then when you transition, like let's say you jump off of a table onto the ground, like that different texture is going to do something to your tires. If you apply your boost during that jump, you're going to absolutely fly. And it's got some physics in there like Rocket League. You can definitely fly with the boost, jump over to a different part of the track. Though I don't like the checkpoints. You've got to make sure you hit a particular checkpoint so you can't just skip a huge part of the track. That would have been fun. But there's boss races in this game, which actually I think are awesome. Really well designed tracks, huge marathon races, like laps that take upwards of 10 minutes, 3-lap races, upwards of 10 minutes. Very, very difficult, very well designed tracks with many different paths. Those are crazy hard just on normal mode. So with the 3, I didn't finish the game completely. I did the first 3 of 5 boss tracks, and I had to lower it each time to the previous setting and absolutely demolished. I could not, after like 5 tries, I could not win on the medium difficulty. I bumped it down, huge difficulty spike just from easy to medium. It was really weird. But then at one point in the game, I forgot to turn it back on to medium and didn't notice, because after this boss, there's a huge spike. So it felt like I was just playing medium again, but I was on easy.
Incredible.
The difficulty is pretty weird here. And it has a lot to do with the physics, but that's a really hard one. Kana was pretty unexpected with its difficulty.
Kana's second to last boss is rough, especially if you haven't been like, getting every item or anything. Like, it's rough. In that case, it's rough in a not very good way, in my opinion.
Yeah.
There's also Returnal, obviously Returnal. Returnal's very difficult.
I had to put that one down respectfully. I didn't finish it. I wasn't angry. I got through the boss, the third boss. I got that transition that Zach talked about, and I started the 4th level.
Did you ever look at the 4th boss? Did you ever watch that video?
I didn't. You told me about it. I didn't watch it.
So just so you know, he's literally like plugged in. He's like, you're at the top of this tower. And it's been overgrown entirely by this tree structure, and this boss is playing this organ, and its back just looks like the face of an owl, almost like made out of bark and trees. It's really weird, but like he's plugged into an organ, like made of like a playing organ made of this tree, and he's just really weird looking. He's really, really cool looking boss.
How does he attack you?
He shoots his stuff into the air via the organ and it rains down on you, and then he just starts shooting beams at you and stuff.
Like with his fingers?
With everything.
It just spawns, like bullets just spawn?
No, look at the tips of him. Like it's I don't remember exactly either, but the main thing is the bullets that come out of the organ, the top of the organ as he plays it, and I'll show it to you after. It's really cool.
Yeah, it definitely sounds very interesting.
But that game's very hard.
And this last pick is more of a joke just because of how trash the core game is, and that's Oddworld. Oddworld Soulstorm.
It has some difficult parts though, especially if you're trying to save a good chunk of the Mudokons. Because to get the real ending,
those are pretty hard.
Yeah, to get the real ending, so like it unlocks a whole other level. 2 other levels, I think. 2 final levels.
2 full levels.
But you have to, on all the other 15 levels, I think 12 out of 15 you have to have rescued over 80% of the Mudokons in the levels. I wish they would have told me that at the beginning.
Yeah.
Because I had to go back and grind 2 levels to get the Mudokons.
I will never do that. That's complete BS.
The Soulstorm Brewery was a good level. I liked it. For what it was.
And those parts where you have to free a bunch of Mudokons, they're not particularly poorly designed. Like all the mechanics are shining there. They work well. There's not any like Twitch platforming. All of the resources are there for you. You're really just sort of puzzling it out. And I think those are little concentrated moments of the sort of puzzles that were in the original game. So yeah, I don't think that's particularly poor design. Those are difficult. They're quite difficult.
And here's the weird thing about this trend is this is well after Dark Souls. 10 years. 10 years after Dark Souls. Right?
Mm-hmm.
The influence has been around for a while. Indie scene's already obviously eaten that up. Right? I would argue between Dark Souls and Minecraft, you have the 2 most influential games of the 2010s.
Mm-hmm.
Like easy. And it's just bizarre because why now do we see it even more so?
Ooh, I bet Breath of the Wild.
Too?
No, Breath of the Wild will live on to be among probably top 5 most influential 2010 games.
It's hard because a lot of games haven't tried Breath of the Wild.
Sable has. Sable did it.
And a lot of people say Phoenix Rising, and I'd argue only at the very, very surface.
Phoenix Rising?
Immortals?
Yeah.
Only at the very surface.
Yeah, like Immortals Phoenix Rising is to Breath of the Wild what Deathloop is to actual immersive Sims.
Yeah. So it's hard to say though why, but yeah, I agree. It's probably going to be one of the most influential games. I hope so. There's a lot of good stuff there. But what I think is I couldn't make a claim on what I think is happening. Why right now we're seeing, it might just be coincidence. Like all these guys just like Dark Souls, or like I think difficult games are, like I don't know if they're getting more recognition or if this is just the fact that more people are making difficult games, more people care about difficult games now. Like I don't know. I could not pinpoint that.
It may have been David Jaffe. Take a grain of salt here with his little tirade about that. I mean, I got stuck on the exact same part. No, I didn't on that one, but I got stuck at other parts for the same reason. That's right. Anyway, he talked about the previous generation from him of kids grew up with those games, very difficult games, and are now the ones making games. And that's what they played growing up. Very difficult games.
That's an interesting take. I doubt it's any of that. I think it's just some people like making hard games, and I think that now those developers have come into their own. Like if you think Housemarque, right? This is their first big game. They've been making games for a while, and it's all been arcade style. Of course, it's gonna be hard. It's arcade style. And they just took the next step, which is the kind of games they've already been making.
Did they do? What was it? Something 2044 Robotron.
I don't know.
Which was the first twin stick shooter. Yeah, I'd love to figure that out. I think they did Robotron way back in the day. It's a super old arcade game. Literally just 2 joysticks. It's an actual twin stick shooter.
It's the way to live life.
Anyway, I wonder if they did that.
So yeah, difficult games. I don't know why, but they're there, and I like it personally. I like hard games.
I like hard games to an extent. Something like Returnal that is very specifically crafted to be like that. Hot Wheels didn't need to be so rough. Neither did Kano.
And you could argue Metroid Dread doesn't have to, but
I do. You don't. We completely disagree.
I think though, when you look at what the game's going for, an action game, and a lot of reminiscence for me on like Mega Man 0-2, I think the difficulty bump makes sense because that's how engagement goes up with exploration engagement going down. At least that's the way I think about it. And I think that's valid. I don't think it's maybe as warranted as I'd like it to be, but I still think it's pretty warranted.
It's not
but
as
like
egregious.
everybody has to remember to take everything I say about difficulty with a grain of salt, because I'm the kid who grew up trying to S-rank Mega Man 0-2, and that game's tough as nails. Like that's a hard video game.
Zach is, first of all, very good at very difficult games, and also is way too stubborn to quit games. Like really,
which is probably why I got decent at.
It becomes at some point you have got to realize when you're wasting your time, dude.
Yeah, maybe one day.
Like, there's so many other games you could be playing instead of grinding out 2 extra levels in Oddworld, or the rest of the very end of SMT5.
That I enjoyed fully. Like
All
that
right.
was not me just grinding out. Like I was having a very good time with SMT5 and wanted to finish it. That's different. But no, you're right. Oddworld, it's different for me when it comes to the cast, because I like holistic discussion, and even if I get a slightly more holistic take from finishing the last 2 levels, I'll take it a lot of the time. I'll play the Deus Ex Invisible War to have a holistic, or whatever that game's called.
Invisible War.
Yeah, I'll play it for the more holistic.
Have
take.
fun.
I won't, but I will enjoy being able to talk about it.
It's probably a competent game, but just like we're talking about Deathloop, its detractors are probably the people like us. It's likely a pretty good game, but there's just other games to play.
Sure.
And we know it's not anything close to the other ones, so why even play it? Well, aside from having the full discussion. Quick break. Okay.
We back.
Indeed.
Oh, we back.
Indeed. So I guess this could be a trend.
Maybe a little bit.
Maybe.
I don't know.
Best handling game. It's the next award from us. The next recognition, at least. We don't hand out
we
awards.
talked about handling quite a bit this year. Like there's some games that really stood out. Like this feels good.
Feels very good. Number 3 on this list.
That's a me one. I'll take it away.
Yeah, take it away. But I mean, it's not you as in I disagree.
No. That's like just something I like talking about.
Sure.
Yeah. Metroid Dread. Yeah, this is most of the stuff we came to the conclusion of together. We want an official unpatched pick. But number 3 is Metroid Dread. Obviously, one of the main takeaways from this game is it's the best handling Metroid game ever made. The slides, the kind of moves you can pull off as you unlock more movement options, how fast you can move and how responsive those controls are, which of course coincides with more the focus on the action. Like I just said, right? Some of those later bosses and mini bosses feeling there are mini bosses you fight in a closed box, like just like you would in a Mega Man Zero game, like. Really, I really think that game was considered when they made it. I'm almost positive. But regardless of whether it was or not, the focus on the action really warranted an increase in that movement, in the feel, in the responsiveness. And the animation for Samus turning around, even when you're sprinting one way and you turn around and go another. Your little... the flash move, like where you kind of, zip around... all just feels fantastic. So huge props for to the whole team, Mercury's team. It's
never felt better.
The upgrade from the 3DS game to this is, of course you got better hardware, but like still, like way to go.
Yeah, it's really great. Number 2 on here is one of my favorites. It Takes Two.
I mean, you just gotta watch Cody run forward with his gut and then like immediately snap around. As he turns, like it feels good.
And then jumping from a run and then into a double jump, and then all of the mechanics, shooting, flying
on the fidget spinner,
flying on the fidget spinners.
It's so good.
It was so good.
That and
one of the best parts of the game, probably sliding,
throwing the nails was really fun. Yeah, all of it.
There's so many mechanics in this game, but they all feel incredible. It's kind of shocking that they could make each of them stand out so much, and you could build an entire game around most of them or just a couple of them, but every level there's a brand new mechanic. You don't even use the other one. It's not like giving you a new option to play. It is a new way. It is a new game, basically, just several times throughout this game. Having a snow fight's fun. I think it's really something special. Far and away, in my opinion, the best 3D platformer this year. Even in a world where Mario, what was it? Bowser's Fury came out. You and I might disagree
I shed a
there.
Tear for that statement, but I will concede. And
listen,
it.
Bowser's Fury is very good, but it feels good. Yeah, it feels like a Mario game. Mario games feel really good, but it gets very samey. You're doing the same stars. Every now and then there's a new one.
Yeah, their whole goal is to reuse each level space with a new mechanic each time.
Yeah, and then even when there's a new level space, there's still like 5 stars that are all the same in all of them, or even more than that.
They're similar. Yeah, I will totally agree.
It's very good.
I enjoy it more than It Takes Two personally, but I actually don't think it feels as good to control. Like, I would not even put it on the same plane as the Odysseys and Galaxies and Sunshines.
I won't argue that.
Like, it's a good use of the 3D world controls, but just when I play Odyssey, every time I fall, it's my fault. When I play Bowser's Fury, a lot of times he's just too slippery. He's just really slippery. So, I agree.
And number 1, of course, gonna be hearing, you've already heard a lot about it, Returnal.
Just I told my brother when he first booted up to just start sprinting, and then just change direction a couple times. Like, just, pop, 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 bob and weave. She just snaps immediately to it, and she looks fluid as she does it. It's just really good. Really responsive. The jumps feel great. Obviously, the shooting feels fantastic. But just the movement, just moving through that space, it reminds me almost like a Tony Hawk game, where you are just in a flow state and you're moving through this space incredibly fast. You're taking in information, not even slowing down, and just pop, going right through it. It's really good.
Yeah, I agree. Definitely the best handling game this year. In a year where there were a lot of good ones. Some, honorable mentions might be Hot Wheels, RE8, but
Deathloop, even.
Oh yeah, Deathloop. Very good. Deathloop would probably be number 4 on here.
Yeah, I think so.
But got to give it to Returnal.
But let's go to a category that I think needs a little clarification. We did it last year, same exact category, but best presentation. And when we talk about presentation, a game with incredible presentation is a game like, the best of the best is going to be something like Last of Us Part 2 or Red Dead Redemption 2. It doesn't need to be graphical fidelity. It has to be the whole package.
But those two are the most graphically...
No, for sure. Because it's do all of the visuals, the camera, does everything come together in such a seamless way that you could never slight it for the way that it is given to you as a player, the way that you are perceiving it, where everything is just fluid and it's all moving together, and it's just it doesn't have to be the best art, but does the art serve in a way that's not going to be choppy? It can't have technical problems to be best presentation. It can't have major technical issues. It all just, has, as a presentation, it has to work. The whole shebang, the whole kit and caboodle.
I did not know about number 1 on here. I thought that was different. But
you want to argue about it right now?
No, because I can't really argue about it. That's fine. Interesting choice. But number 3, I'll let Zach talk about 2 and 1. Number 3 is RE8. There are better shooters this year. Deathloop, 100%. It's a better shooter. But what everything RE8 is doing is near perfection. Even the stupid pulpy nonsense is just chef kiss good. I love it. And it feels incredible to get your hand blown off and pour juice on it.
And pour some juice on it.
Yeah, it feels great.
Oh, and when you get in that mech and fight
what the hell?
Even that is just looks great. You don't have any questions. You have a lot of questions, but you don't have any questions about the way that it's presented. It all fits together. Yep, okay. This makes sense. It just doesn't make any sense.
So RE8,
and the way it communicates to you a little, in little ways, how that you have to let the cold in and the wind in to kill the vampire sisters. Mm-hmm. And, again, just those little touches and how clean those things are.
There's one thing you mentioned that I agree with. Stop with the just floating items. Animate his hand. You animate so much of his hand.
Yeah.
Have him turn a freaking key.
Yeah.
It's very dumb.
Agreed, 100%. That took me out of it, and it will every time until they do it. Very silly. Very silly. But moving on, we have what I think is the second best presented game of 2021, which is, big surprise to everyone, Returnal. Again, this game, all of the sound and visuals come together in a way where when you walk into an environment, it is whole. You have an idea of where you are at in space and time. You have an idea of what is around you, even behind you with the sound. Play this game with headphones, people. Play this game with headphones. It's fantastic. So, again, the whole package, and of course it looks fantastic as well on top of all those things. The way the bullets come at you, the little floating spheres, the colors of the enemies, the kind of way that it shows you weak points on certain enemies. All this stuff is so seamless. There's no hey, look at this, check this out. And the HUD is very small. Very small, doesn't get in the way.
The HUD is very nice.
Yeah.
I think it does a good job with the UI there.
And then
number 1.
What I would argue for number 1, Tyler has not had a chance to play it yet.
Yes,
but
I skipped it. I didn't miss it. I skipped it. Sad
and
day.
This is Death's Door. Death's Door had me pretty much immediately. After the first boss, which is your first encounter at all, after your first boss, you end up in the next area, and you're chasing someone who has taken this boss's soul, and you're trying to reap this boss's soul, and he's taking it from you, little old crow. And as you're chasing him, he'll show up on, the structure above you. And because of the way the camera's focused, as you've walked under it, it's kind of, blocking off the upper part of the camera a little bit. But it's out of focus because you're in focus, right?
It's the foreground.
Exactly. And so he'll come across, but you'll see him just, just his outline, just enough to see him look down and see you and kind of start shuffling a little faster. And I need to go get there. And so you start following him. And then you'll see him somewhere else. The way this is visually communicated is so clean and seamless, to the point where it's happening. It feels like it's happening despite you. You don't even have to be there to make it happen, which of course you have to be there.
Yeah.
But it feels like that because of the way it's presented. Another thing with Death's Door is the light. The way the light hits the crow and casts shadows on things. The way the tiny little individual leaves pop up and rustle. Things that happen in other video games. But as a collective piece of art, the entire visual style being so cohesive, and the way movement happens and the way the camera interacts in just these little tiny subtle ways with what's going on, just bring the whole thing together in a way that is. And then don't get me started, the music integrating with the environment. There's one environment where in a laboratory where these pillars are smashing in and out, but it's to the beat of the music in a really in a way that's not obvious too, where it's not that's what they're trying to do.
This is a rhythm section.
Yeah, it's because it's not part of the song. It's just, it's quieter than the song going on, but it's going on. And then of course the music just brings it all together. And then the text boxes, even the text boxes, the sound they chose for each little text box, it's so cohesive and really deserves respect. It's a tiny, tiny, tiny little team.
Not many games do this, but I really like when games... I can't even remember which game I'm thinking of right now, but the text box, the noise for the text box, is pretty much the accent for the character. It's a different sound for every character in the game. Does this ring a bell to you?
No, it sounds cool, though. You know what I always think of? Oh! Beetle or whatever his name is.
Thank you!
Yeah, he's amazing.
I love Beetle.
He's incredible.
Love Beetle.
Yeah.
Anyway, best presented game. Interesting choice. I'm surprised you chose that over Returnal. I did not realize that.
I just think it's.
I can't make an argument against it because I have not. I skipped.
Snuck it in there. Snuck it in there.
Quite unfortunately, we have the best art direction. Top 3 here again. I'll go ahead and take this one away.
Do it.
One of the most, I think probably the most visually striking game this year is Moondawn. That's not to say it has the best art direction, but you have absolutely not seen anything like it. Moondawn is a sort of hand-drawn. All of the textures in the game
pencil sketch.
Yeah, are pencil sketches. And it, we talked about it last week, so I won't really harp on it too much. But its visual presentation makes it out to be what I think is the first true folk horror video game. In the same vein as something that does not get talked about enough, but the original Wicker Man, what Ari Aster is doing. There's a lot going on in that genre.
I watched the original Wicker Man for the first time in 2021, and I cried.
What? I thought you saw it before.
No, I mean, all the way through as an adult.
Oh, you just
where
saw
it counts.
Okay.
Where it counts, if that makes sense.
Sure.
I always remembered having fond memory of it. It's not an age
it's
where
incredible.
I could have understood it, really.
Yeah, I watched it last year. Or 2020.
I wept. That is such a movie. Wow. I love that movie.
Yeah. I think with another watch, it might be in my top 20.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It might take out... I don't know. There's a lot it could take out. It just needs one more watch, I bet. But Moondawn, for number 3, the best art direction. It's really something wholly special. Surprisingly for me, at number 2 would be Sable. Sable, I also have not seen much like it before, and it just everything it's doing with its visuals. There's not very much detail in anything. They're all very sharp corners. All of the models have pretty sharp corners, very solid colors. Like there's not a lot of detail or contrast, or rather, no, the contrast is very high. Just very strong, solid colors on everything, and the animation for all the characters is, I think, stuck at 24 frames. It's very interesting. Or I don't know what the frame rate is, but it's obviously an intentionally lower frame rate than everything else in the game. Trees blow correctly, your car moves correctly, like the gas coming out of it. But your car is sort of a character. So like I currently have some parts on it that make it look like a beetle. So it has some like mechanical beetle legs. Those move at the lesser frame rate. That adds so much to it. It's subtle, but it really does something special. I can't really pinpoint it. And then just the visual design as a whole, and I think in many aspects, the art design, the art direction doesn't just have to be the visuals, because the visuals and the music might work together hand in hand to deliver a particular experience. That's going on here with Sable. But every couple of years, something comes out that really outdoes everything before it. I think the last time pixel art was really outdone was with Owlboy. I think Owlboy was very excited for that. Excuse me, had to take another sip there. I've still got some more, unfortunately.
That's fine.
So I think Owlboy, for what's it been, 6 years now, something like that, has been top of the game for best pixel art, and I don't think it was topped for a long time. I look at it often enough. I think oh no, what's it called? It's the SNK side-scrolling World War II shooters. Dang it, Metal Slug. That's it. I think Metal Slug is some of the best the industry has ever shown in terms of pixel art. It was topped by Owlboy, and this year, finally, I think it's never been better. Eastward. Eastward is one of the most gorgeous games I have ever seen. The best pixel art I've ever seen in a game, and it's doing something that a lot of modern games, a lot of modern pixel games do. They use sort of 3D lighting in spaces, and there's some depth with things. Not like something like Backbone or The Last Chance, I think we talked about briefly. Whatever that is. The Last Night, maybe. Those are using actual like 3D depth, some 3D models maybe, but in a 2D space. This is not quite like that. But there's definitely a lot of depth to every frame, and the lighting is incredible. The music is fantastic. The characters are so charming. And all those visuals, all those expressions in the characters come across so well, because you can fit so much more. There's so many more pixels in modern displays than you could have on the Super Nintendo or something. Though the Super Nintendo has some heavy hitters in terms of pixel art.
Yeah, it does.
Eastward,
Dude,
I
Chrono
think is,
Trigger.
Yeah,
Looks
Chrono
great
Trigger
to
is
this
great.
day.
Was Metal Slug on? Metal Slug was not on Super Nintendo. I think that was Sega. But
Sega.
I really like Sega's current intro. I think that's one of the.
I don't recall.
It's the eye, and
Oh,
then the
that's
Sega sort of
right.
comes across the iris.
You know what we have
Or the
put off
pupil,
for
rather?
far too long? Yakuza.
Yes, we have
We've put that off.
too long, but we have a
Too
lot of
long.
series this year. We will get to it.
Yeah.
We will get to it probably next year. Yeah. So, Eastward. Something I did not mention. I just want to give a shout out to it. Is Chris Tales' please take a look at Chris Tales. It is so gorgeous. I've never seen anything like it. Unfortunately, it's not the best. I'm not going to put it on the best just because it's new, but it is absolutely gorgeous. That I don't know his name, but the artist that did all of the concept work for Sleeping Beauty, it's taking a lot after his work, but sort of in a early 2010s Cartoon Network style. It's very interesting, and like Cuphead, just really hasn't been done before. So check out Chris Tales, but number 1, Eastward.
Good stuff. I'll let you finish that whiskey while I move on to Best Narrative of 2021. A lot of good narrative-focused games this year. Our number 3 pick is The Medium. This is a game that really resonated with me, again, because of the theme of moving on and loss and death. It definitely does. It definitely misses some of its punches. Maybe not a full miss, but a little graze. It has some moments that don't really land, but overall, what a world and a place to be, and all of the characters you're talking to, who you're trying to get a sense of this place, this horrible, awful place that has just been decimated by depression and anxiety and hopelessness, and you're just meeting this place through the ghosts that inhabit it, basically, and just mesmerizing. Again, like you said, it is surface level Beksinski, but still got some Beksinski, and it still looks good in a lot of places, and it's a cool space to inhabit in a lot of ways. So yeah, that's the number 3 pick. Number 2 for us is It Takes Two, a game that I like the way you always phrase it. It's a good game because it doesn't have to end happy. It doesn't have to end with all of its strings tied.
Yeah, and I think that was a negative takeaway for a lot of people. It seems that they
It's just sad because that's not life.
That's not life, and I liken it to Miss Doubtfire. Mrs. Doubtfire
Which is a far better movie, I think, than I realize sometimes.
Yes, I watched it for the first time last year, or 2020. I'm sorry, we're still in 2022 now.
It punches above its weight class.
Absolutely, it does. It's so surprising. Like unpacking, honestly. Like, what are you doing? How did you do that? And that's also the case with Mrs. Doubtfire. It totally blindsides you, and it doesn't have a happy ending. It has a real ending.
That is not unhappy.
It's not unhappy, right? No,
because it's still okay. You know,
that's the point. It's taking the situation and making it okay, not making it
as it should be.
Yeah, but coming to terms with it.
Yeah,
and that's what happens in It Takes Two. It's a game about divorce, and it does leave it sort of vague. You don't know exactly what happened, but let's be real, they're not getting back together. It's not going to happen. I think it's a very real depiction of divorce, and it didn't resonate with Zach as much as it did me. I
have
see
the
a lot
perfect
of
family.
He's not joking. He's not being pretentious.
This is not,
he does.
This is I have what everybody wishes they had as a family.
Yes, he does. I do not. So I have divorced parents. I see a lot of my mom in May. Their fights, they're so petty sometimes, but they're so realistic. I see a lot of myself in. I fear that there's a lot of me in Cody, and I don't want to be seen like that. So it really resonated because I think those characters, even though they're toys, which I think is the perfect juxtaposition, the characters themselves are so real. I really appreciate them.
So real, it should hurt a little. Like, it should hurt a little.
Yes.
Yeah.
Especially May.
Yeah, May is... Yeah, we'll talk about that. We will talk about that. And so our number 1 pick, controversial pick, we get it, but it's Soulstorm. Again, we talked about this earlier, so we won't harp on it too much more, but check out the first segment of the video if you haven't watched it. But this game's story is why you keep playing it.
And check out that episode.
Yeah, good
Definitely check
episode.
out that episode.
Good episode. You about done there?
Yeah, one
We'll
more.
pop this up. Okay, before we move on to our next section here, a little something special. So this is it's not in Austin, it's South Austin area, Driftwood, I believe. Yeah, Driftwood, Texas. That's where I got married, Driftwood, Texas. So this is Desert Door. They make Sotol, which for the uninitiated, Sotol, consider it like the agave plant in many ways. It's going to have similar characteristics to mezcal because of that. Very similar. So it's not blue agave, like tequila, but it's similar to mezcal. This, however, is the coolest bottle in the world. And Spoke Hollow is what it's called, and it's actually has some gin botanicals as well. So it's a Sotol, so that smoky, a little bit of agave honey, kind of what you'd think of in a tequila sometimes. That does come through a little bit, not as much though. But also the gin botanicals. So there's a reason we're ending with this, because it is a lot of bitter.
Let's get a little more in there.
A little more.
I love this stuff.
Yeah, let's do it. Spoke Hollow from Desert Door. If you guys, it's hard to find, I'm sure, outside of Texas, but if you can find it, this stuff's good. Their main fleet is fantastic as well. So, it smells incredible. Bottoms up.
It's so good.
It's so good, and it's really clean. This is just...
And yeah, like you said, best bottle. It feels like a desert. It feels like sand.
Yeah.
It's very interesting.
Something you'd drink the last drops of water out of as you travel the desert.
However, it does not absorb the water very well.
No, it does not.
There we go.
It does not. So, moving on, we are going to talk about the best characters. And like we did previously, where Tyler highlighted some underdogs, I'll be highlighting the underdogs in this case. The characters who, sure, are not going to be the ones with cool arcs and brilliant writing, but they're going to be the ones who stand out to me.
No, I would like you to fully explain your take. It's a take we completely disagree on, but an interesting take at the very least. I'd like you to share it.
Sure. So, in my opinion, this is again definitely a weird take, but I believe a character doesn't have to be the undergo incredible writing, like a great arc through incredible writing, or be up against certain challenges and really have to face a couple things. The kind of things you'd think about with some of the classic characters, the ones who are going to have to really do a lot of heavy lifting for the story, is I guess the best way to phrase it. The people doing the most heavy lifting for the story, the characters you come back and think about the most, these are the characters that a lot of people will say are best characters, and that makes sense. I totally understand that. In fact, if I were to honestly list my 3 favorite characters in all of literature, I'm sure they would be those characters, right? However, I give equal weight to the side characters, the ones who don't have those things, who don't do a lot of heavy lifting, but just stand out. The very fact that they stand out, that there's something about them that's engaging, it could be deep and interesting and have something meaningful there, and it should if it's going to pertain to the story, obviously, but sometimes not always. But because they stand out and because they are well written, even if they are stagnant or static, it might be a nicer way of saying it, I believe they have equal credence to be called a best character, if not as interesting of a choice, maybe, right? Not necessarily.
I just think that, I don't disagree that you could put them on a best character list. I just think it's a different conversation. I think it's a different list of characters. I am one who leans towards, when we're talking about something that is the best and not my favorite, I think of character arcs. The best written characters in a full arc, not really what they do for the narrative, but what the narrative does to them. That's what I'm looking for. And it seems like your first 2 are characters that have already gone through arcs. You don't see any of that.
Correct.
They are doing to the narrative rather than the narrative enacting on them. So why don't you go ahead and take it away with your number 3?
Yeah, and before we go on, I do want to say that's a really good way of phrasing it. I think that's very interesting, and I usually think that it's more helpful, but for me, my struggle is that my line between subjective and objective is very blurred. Between what is best and what is my favorite is a very, very thin line for me. And I don't even find objective talk useful all the time. So, that's for listeners. Tyler knows this already.
No, this is typically my favorite stuff as well, but
I just like for what you said previously.
Like, one of my favorite characters is Beetle. I like Beetle a lot. I like the fish in Wind Waker that gives you the map. He's so great. I love every time he comes on screen, but he's not my favorite character. He's one of my favorite friends on screen. It's very different. Or I
guess it's hard for me to divide that.
Resident Evil 8, the big merchant guy. He's hilarious. I love every time I walk into his space, or there at the end of the game where he does a little more. I like that.
Why?
Yeah.
Why?
Is this correct for your number 3?
Yep, that is my correct number 3.
Not ever?
What?
Oh, it's 2021. Never mind.
It's 2021.
Never mind.
So that's a good transition. My number 3 favorite character of the year is the Merchant from Resident Evil 8. His presence, everything about him. When I think of Resident Evil 8, I do not think Lady D. I immediately think the Merchant every time.
Yeah.
He is so evocative. He says very few things, does very few things, and yet he stands out. That's a good character in my book, I love talking to him. I wish he said more things. I just love it so much. So that's an easy one for me. Merchant from Resident Evil 8.
Yes, indeed. Number 3 is Celine. This is for the character arcs, which I think we can better structure this, and instead of being my 3 and your 3, we can definitely structure this a little differently next year. To have 2 separate lists of characters.
Yeah, that's fair. Totally.
Because we agree, I think.
Yeah, I was about to say, if
you made the separation, you don't really, but if you did make the separation, we pretty much agree on these 3.
I think so, yeah.
So, number 3, for character arcs, Celine from Returnal. Zach knows her full arc more, so actually I want Zach to talk about her. I only got to see half of the arc, and that was great. I put it down. I loved what I played. I accepted my defeat. It fought valiantly and won. So I moved on. Celine could not. And Zach knows a little more about that.
Yeah, so I did 100% the game. I got all the secrets, got the secret ending, all that stuff. And Celine is beautiful for her burdens. And this isn't saying oh, it's an interesting story because this person's crazy. A lot of stories rely on that too much. Oh, because my character is insane, it makes them interesting. No. And Celine's not insane. That's just a crutch. Making a burden on a character their only character trait is not interesting, in my opinion. But Celine very much is made beautiful by her burdens because you don't know a lot about her. You know that she has a good heart. You know that she's poetic, that she sees the world in a really beautiful kind of way. And you know that just from the first couple times she opens her mouth, and she's very practical. A couple little simple character traits. But there's that moment halfway through, and spoilers here. You can skip ahead probably exactly 60 seconds. I'll be done. Spoilers here. 1, 2, 3. Celine, halfway through the game, you finally make it to the signal that she's been looking for, and she collapses, and she's rescued, and she goes home and lives out her entire life to old age, and dies of old age, is buried in the ground, and immediately wakes back up in the loop again. And the crushing weight of that moment, of having thought that she lived a happy long life and it all to be nothing, that death will just bring her right back to this moment. Her face in that moment is exactly what I expect. It's not this no, Luke Skywalker realizing Vader's his dad. Spoilers. It's not that moment. It's this just her whole body deflates. hope is just drained from her. And then
It's a good performance too.
oh, her performance is incredible. And she gets back up. And she just moves forward. And that is good performance through her burdens. And then, of course, her fears and all the little things you learn about her through the house and things like that. The more nuances to her character, her relationship with her mother, you know, the successful great astronaut, and the inadequacies there. There's just a lot to unpack with Celine. It's I've been talking about it because I've been thinking about it a lot lately, but it's a lot of the ideas of the Alice, you know, American McGee's Alice. You take a character, through the environment and the gameplay, you dig into their psyche and what their burdens are and what their crosses are, right? And this game definitely does that, and it does it very well.
Absolutely. Go ahead and talk about your number 2
Number
pick.
2, if you are on Discord, you will know because it is my avatar. Green Mage from Everhood. Green Mage is immediately the most interesting character in that whole game.
Yes,
like
100%.
like the second you find him, he doesn't have his eye. He has one eye, and you have to go find it. You go pick it up and you bring it back to him. And he's like, "Yes, I got it. I'm gonna kill you now. Ha! Just kidding. Not right now." And then he leaves and you walk a couple feet. "I'm gonna kill you right now." "Oh no, I mean, I guess not right now. You know, I have things to do." But like, he's very weird, very odd. He DMs he game masters a little like role playing game that you partake in for a while, where you're kind of learning a new mechanic, and he's there. And as you start to like learn more about him, he's very odd, very flippant. He respects nothing.
You know, he's also the only obviously old character in the game. Oh no, there's that one lady that's like homeless lady or something.
That's right. Yeah.
But everybody else has taken on the form that they want to, but he is not. He's very old and worn and tattered.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I didn't think about that. Like his his little robe is tattered, but his eye, like all he has is his eye. But it, like, you know, the way he expresses mad joy through it is incredible. You eventually find his house, though. You realize he's been tallying every year. I think it's years. I think it's every year he's been alive in Everhood. And someone did the calculation. It's, you know, beyond count. Like so many years he's been alive. And he's just accepted insanity for being alive. Like a human mind should not be alive that long. And he's accepted it. And when he fights you at the end, it's near the end of he's one of the final fights that I'd had in the game was Green Mage. And great song, one of my favorite tracks in the game. It's got these I don't know if it's a tuba. It's a horn for sure. Not quite as deep as a tuba, but beautiful, beautiful sounds. And he's not even fighting you because he's trying to stop you from killing him. He's like, well, I guess this is what people do. Like, he just goes for it. Really. He has that interesting, you know, a couple interesting things about him with how old he's been and how the burden of this eternal reality. But again, just a delight of a character to be around.
Indeed. I fully agree there. Number 2 for what I think are the best character arcs, the best main characters, I guess, is May from It Takes Two.
Well written.
I already mentioned that the narrative is very real. It definitely hit home for me. If you have not experienced a divorce in your family, then rejoice in your innocence, your ignorance. It's your ignorance to the emotions that come with that. I'm not calling you ignorant. That whole relationship is just such a carefully crafted one. And I know May. I have met her before. I have lived with her before. And she doesn't really see Cody as... She barely sees Cody as a person anymore. Cody is like she stubs her toe on Cody. Like, of the toe of her life is just constantly stubbed by Cody, and that's all he is anymore.
I like Toady. That's a better name.
No. And I know her. I can hear it in her voice.
And the
I've seen
performance
it
is the
before.
best of the year. If we had a best
Best of the
performance
year,
category, it'd be
100%.
her.
I don't remember
Her and
your
then
name.
Celine.
Thank you so much. It was a very, very good performance. It's just perfect. I really love May. So that's number 2 there.
We have a pretty interesting pick that we both share for number 1. Though.
Yes. So I specifically asked you to start so you could finish with this one because you'll just say it better. But this is number 1 for both of us.
Yeah, so it's Compton Boole from Psychonauts 2. There's quite a few characters from Psychonauts 2 that we could have considered. Specifically, Jack Black's character is fantastic. Obviously, the old man that was in Psychonauts 1 as well. I forget his name. He's obviously fantastic as well.
Yeah, he's good, but he doesn't carry the same weight as either of those other
weight.
2.
I agree. I totally agree. And the weight here is this guy lives in total isolation, no interaction with anyone, because anytime he goes outside, he can hear animals speak. That's his main psychic ability, right? And he just becomes overloaded with voices in his head, and he can't handle it. He can't handle it. But when you enter his mind and work with him, he is absolutely debilitated. He's on this game show hosted by, we've talked about this a little already, so I won't go too much into it, but the game show hosted by massive hand puppets that look like the people in his life, and they're judging him actively, and he can't live up, right? And so you kind of help him learn to live up to his own mental perception of his own inadequacy, and his arc from being totally debilitated to learning how to take control back over not only his life, but the way that he perceives himself and the way he perceives how others perceive him and the value he places on those things. Like, it's not something people talk about, the importance of how you perceive someone else perceiving you. It's weird. It's hard to even say. Like, I feel like there should be a word for it, And it's just in that moment we talked about earlier where he removes the puppet from his hand and just starts telling, "Oh yeah, no, start packing that up, and we'll do this." And he's back in control.
So good,
so
man.
clean. It's so clean.
Perfect.
I love it. Love it.
I wonder how much of that is Tim Schafer or someone else on the writing scene, because if that's Tim Schafer right there, that has got to be his masterstroke. Right there. I would probably say Psychonauts 2 is his masterstroke. It might not be my favorite Double Fine game, but the characters are so well realized here, and he has moved away. I watched the MinMax interview with him and is it Michael Ferris?
I don't remember.
The guy from It Takes Two. They did a joint interview on MinMax. Very interesting. Very different characters that are both doing things in the 3D platformer space this year, and Tim Schafer has sort of moved away from trying to be the face of Double Fine because it is such a team. And Michael Ferris is obviously the face of I don't even know the studio's name. I just know it's
a little yellow
Michael
logo.
Ferris
Yeah, I don't
game.
remember.
That's all I know is it's a Michael Ferris game.
He's doing a good job.
Something Ferris. Yeah. But yeah, Tim Schafer sort of moved away from that, but I would like to know if that is him, if that's his genius coming out, and also the helmet full bearer. That whole regaining
whole
psyche.
Fantastic.
That game is so good. All of its disparate pieces are not that great, but the whole package is such a fantastic game. I can't recommend it enough. And yeah, best character this year has got to be Compton Boole.
Yeah. Really, I mean, a lot of the members of that Psychonauts team all really shine. I forget the librarian.
Oh, she's so good too.
She's fantastic. She's really good. Lots of great characters in Psychonauts 2. So that was a tough choice. But we're moving on to an easy category, the most fun game of 2021. Mm-hmm. And this is specifically not the game that is the most fun, but a game that is just trying to deliver a purely fun experience. You know, Uncharted would never qualify for this, ever. It's a cinematic adventure. It's trying to make you feel a certain way, you know? Like, what's a game that's just trying to be fun? Classic arcade sense of fun, you know? And number 3 was my pick. I picked Bowser's...
An easy pick.
Yeah, Bowser's Fury. I think Bowser's Fury is the Mario team really just flexing. Let's just try some new stuff with this engine and movement system we already have. Like, let's just do something new with it. And it's just fun. Riding Plessy is a delight. It's so much fun to just zip around and try to, you know, jump off of platforms and stuff. It's a pretty easy game.
It's a surprising... I actually didn't finish it because I thought there were only 4 cycles, and then they introduced a 5th cycle. I was like, no, you should have ended already. I thought it's overstayed its welcome a bit. And God, if there's another cycle...
It's just that third one where you get up there, you have to... It's 2 cycles, but the cycle, but it's only 10 shines or whatever between the 2. Like, it's really... It might as well just be 1 cycle. Like, it's really negligible. Because you need 50 total to beat the game. You need 50 shines to beat the game.
Interesting. I probably had like 39.
Yeah, so you'd probably get 1, do the next cycle, then 10, then you do the final cycle.
I did 4. I know I did 4.
Yeah. So I think it's 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 or 6.
Yeah. Introducing that last one, I think, was too much because it's a lot of the same. Yeah, I mean, first of all, I agree. Incredibly fun game. Easy number 3. I just think
I put it above 3D World, but far below 64 Sunshine Galaxy 1.
Of course. It holds nothing to any of the 3D games.
Yeah.
Any of them. And though a bunch of mechanics I think are way better than... a bunch of mechanics in It Takes Two are way better than pretty much anything. This is my opinion. Zach is much more fond of Mario, but I think It Takes Two... any one mechanic might be a little more fun than pretty much anything in Bowser's Fury, but It Takes Two is doing a lot more. And like you said with Uncharted, it's such a cinematic experience. Bowser's Fury has no agenda other than being fun.
Yep.
And that's true of any one mechanic in It Takes Two, but the fact that it's so focused on a narrative and guiding you through levels and like sort of visual experiences that give you metaphors, that's all not part of the fun. So easy number 3 here. Number 2 is one I didn't get to play a ton of. I got through the tutorial. I got all the items, all the different sports you can do, but didn't play too much. That said, I still think it's incredible. That is Riders Republic. I only played this game because of how much, it's so outside of my wheelhouse. I would never play this game, but it was on sale, and I heard so many praises for it on the MinMax podcast for their Game of the Year discussion. Riders Republic is it's an open world sports game. You are mountain biking, you're doing snowboarding and skiing. You've got wingsuits, actual jetpacks. You can get on a bike it's like a pizza delivery bike that has like a jetpack strapped to the bottom of it, and some sort of cage, so it's like a desert cruiser. It's really weird. Those are hard to control though. But it's a huge open world game where you can just do it. Oh, and snowmobiles as well. You can just switch to any of these anytime. Obviously, you can't move on your snowboard if there's no snow, and you can't really go up a mountain. But you can go up a mountain with your skis and your snowmobile, and then just jump off the mountain and switch to your wingsuit or your jetpack, whichever. And you do races online. It's just a ton of stupid fun. It's very cringe-inducing in the beginning. I don't know what they think cool people are. It's not those people. It is not those.
I can promise you
people.
right now, I have no idea what cool people are like.
Yeah.
I have no idea. It's another species.
Sure. But it's
What's
also
up, daddy-o?
I think is very interesting. The trick system is all based on the face buttons, not like triangle does a kickflip or something, but the face buttons are a second directional pad. So you're using both directional pads to, well, I guess you're using the stick and not the actual directional pad. But it's like a second form of direction. So the stick, when you're in the air performing a trick, moves your body's momentum, but the face buttons act as a D-pad for the weight of whatever you're riding, your bike, your skis, your snowboard, or whatever. So I might be flipping forward, but I might hold on the PlayStation square and X. So I'm moving forward, but I'm pulling my board sort of left and backwards. It's very interesting and a ton of fun. And then you use the triggers to grab different parts of the board or whatever you're on. It's awesome. It's very intuitive and a ton of fun. It's still installed on my PlayStation. I got it sitting right there just to pop in anytime. There's definitely number 2. Number 1, you have not had the privilege to play yet. And that's Hot Wheels. It's just so dumb that it exists. And I'm so happy that it came out. No one had any idea that this was going to happen or that it was going to be any good. And it's just fantastic. Like, you can get Snoopy. The Snoopy Hot Wheels is so fast. And you
Bro, you got that Snoopy Hot Wheel?
I don't, because the trading system is weird in that to trade your item in any of your cars for the currency, and you've got the common, uncommon, and rare, and then the like mythic, which something like Snoopy would be the whatever the Scooby-Doo van is, that would be a mythic pull, and you open packs of cars. So anyway, you trade them in by holding the right trigger. That's it. You don't select trade or anything. You just hold the right trigger for 2 seconds. And at the very bottom of the screen, all of the button prompts are laid out there for you. So it shows you what you're doing. And as you hold it, the circle fills around the R2 button, just like a lot of games do these days. Thank you, Destiny. It sort of circles around. Okay, you've officially selected that. We'll trade in the car. The triggers on the PlayStation are so sensitive, and I had no idea I was pressing it, and I traded my Snoopy car. Quite unfortunately.
Why?
And it was my first... I didn't even get to use it. I just opened it. I didn't know what happened. It just disappeared. I got a pile of currency. I was like, no. But it's just so much stupid fun. The fact that it exists is just a pleasure. I love it.
Said Snoopy car is a pleasure enough.
Yeah, it's fun. That's number 1 for me.
Fantastic.
Most fun game.
Let's move on to best sound design. So overall sound design, I bring this up really for one game in particular, but we do have an honorable mention, which is Inscription. Every sound in Inscription, when you stand up from the desk at Inscription and just your chair scooch, sounds incredible. Flipping the cards on the table sounds great. When you clink the little teeth into the little weight system that they have for health.
When you stab a card to sacrifice.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
very good.
Sounds so good. And really, I mean, throughout the whole game, even in the third phase, you have like, the little stack of floppy disks, and like it all just sounds right. It all just sounds right. It sounds good. But number 1 is a game that I think would be less of a lesser game if the sound design wasn't this good, and that's Returnal. Surprise! Returnal's...
It's just a perfect game, dude.
I'm not going to waste my time explaining it, because you can watch SkillUp's review of Returnal, in which he breaks down exactly why that soundscape is incredible. The information conveyed to you as a player through it is fantastic. The immersion presented by that, every sound in that whole game is fantastic, and the rewarding sounds all sound great. The negative sounds all sound just right. don't have anything worthwhile to say about it.
But piggybacking off of that, we have our favorite sounds in video games this year. Not sound design, just our favorite little things. Like one of my favorite sounds in all of video games is the little Koopa noises. I think the Koopas sound fantastic. It's a perfect little sound that is so recognizable. So just our favorite sounds this year. Zach, what's one of yours?
I know it's not technically new, but just the body dragging sounds in Hitman, the floppy, it's good. It's so satisfying. I truly adore it.
It's very good. One of my favorites. For me, one of my favorites is boosting in Hot Wheels. I think it just feels good. It looks good. It sounds visceral. That's good every time.
Another one for me is a little weird pick, but I love and it's not new, but the hi in Oddworld,
oh yeah,
follow me, like I just,
oh, that's so good.
It's so good.
I didn't think about that.
I love it so much. It's really satisfying.
Yeah,
guys. Follow me.
He sounds like such a derp.
Yeah, and when you set them to aggressive mode, it's like a little guitar. It's just great.
Yeah. Sacrificing a creature in Inscription. Just mentioned that a moment ago. Good. It sounds fantastic.
Yeah, it really does. Absolutely.
It sounds fantastic. And there's death bells that ring in the background very lightly when you sacrifice one. So you've got the knife stabs in the table, through the paper, into the table. The paper sort of burns away. And then there's a little chime that happens in the background that's kind of hard to discern, but it adds a lot. I think it's really good. Sort of a death knell happening there. You got anything else?
Yeah. There's it's kind of a weird pick, but I've already mentioned it actually, is the text box sounds in Death's Door.
Okay.
Sound really, really good. I'd say the same for Loop Hero as well. Loop Hero's text box sounds
Loop Hero does a lot of things really good.
Again, since I'm talking Loop Hero, the little hitting a slime and loop, hitting just just the sound. I can't even do it.
Yeah, you can't do it. No, you can't.
It's so good.
It's very good. It's very good. Number one for me is finishing a box and unpacking. We talked about it last week. Just sometimes I would line up some boxes to where there was only one item in each of them, so I could quickly finish a bunch of them. Because when you finish a box, like you're playing a card game online, when you open a pack, you get this big visual flair, these a bunch of fanfare. Every time you open a pack, every time you finish a box, it folds up and sort of pops out of existence. That's pretty good. That's pretty damn
delightful.
Good. Indeed.
So let's go on to what I'd say is our final section of categories. These are what I think are some of the more interesting categories, the stuff that we think about a lot. And let's start with best new mechanics. I'll do 3 and 2.
Well, there are some very small things I wanted to mention because the rest of the, they were not going to make the list. These are more honorable mentions here.
Fire away.
Yeah, let's see here. I was very intrigued by, well, not intrigued, I didn't use it, but in Unsighted, which I didn't get to play, I started just for a second and then had to, I don't know what happened, so I got called away. One of the settings there is to turn off the pixel art text so you have normal text on the screen. I think every game with pixel art should do that because some of them are very hard to see. I typically don't have a problem, so I would almost never use it, but I can definitely see where that would be useful for
Absolutely.
people.
My kid brother and my wife both are severely dyslexic and would appreciate that immensely.
Yeah, that's a big one. Did I have... I got the last one here. No, I didn't have another section. But I've never seen this. Why is it Eastward is the one that has done this, I think, better than literally any game? Save files in Eastward. And even something like Disco Elysium could implement this to great effect. The save files, which you may never see this. If you play it on Switch and you just hibernate your Switch for the entirety of your playthrough, you will never see this. But if you save your game, you leave, you turn it back on, you select a save file, just like any other game. You've got 3, 4 save files, whatever. They are not the save files you select for something like S&T. You have 50 Shin Megami Tensei. You got 50 save files, and if you want to make a backup, you save on a different file, and then you save on both to match up that, to sync up that progress. Here in Eastward, you select your save file, and then in it, you have, and it's so well presented, it's like a card that shows a picture of, just like it would a playing card, like a TCG card. It's got a picture of the save file you're about to select, and then when you click on it, more text information is displayed there, and it shows your last save, like your most recent hard save, the previous hard save, and the autosave file, which you don't really have a choice for. You can select any 3 of those, and it's presented so cleanly. And then if you wanted to expand that, you can have an entire history of autosaves and previous saves just by easily scrolling down. But they're all presented under a different save file, and then the actual saves under each of those, like a save profile, that is. You just have to see it. Maybe we'll pop a picture up here. It's perfect. I've not seen a save file like that, so I had to give a shout out to that. Go ahead and talk about Everhood, though, because I know you love Everhood.
Yeah, so I'll do number 3 and number 2 here. Number 3 is Everhood, and it's just the combat system, which we talked about last time. They integrate everywhere. If you have an interaction with something and it's not just text, it will involve this combat system.
Yes.
For the uninitiated, it's a rhythm style combat system where you are moving side to side on a 5-lane grid, dodging the beats of the enemy, and you can hop either up once or up and over to another grid, giving you a little bit more mobility there. And that's it. It's that simple. You're not even dodging to the beat. Like, it's not what's happening. It's just the attacks are to the beat. And it's, I've never seen anything like it. We talked last time about my favorite example of the way they implement it in a unique way. You have to move a little train cart, like little, hand press carts. And on one side is a button, and when it's depressed, you have to go all the way to the other side. So from the far right lane to the far left lane, and you have to keep alternating while you're dodging attacks to keep the cart moving forward. And everything is done on this grid. It's just really well designed, really original idea, deserves a lot of respect.
Indeed.
Number two is Unsighted. Again, we got 2 for Unsighted. And this is, I'm sure there's been something has been done like this, but it's a first for me. And that is all of the NPCs have an age timer that is going down. And if it ever hits 0, they will die and be removed from the game world. This includes merchants. Every single NPC, and even yourself, you all have a timer. And you can turn this feature off, actually. There's an option to turn this feature off. But it'd ruin the game. Don't do that. It's really, really a good feature. And you get pickups, very rare item pickups, that can extend an NPC's life a little bit longer. And that increases your relationship with them by giving that to them. It gives you discounts at stores if you give it to the merchants. It's just a really unique mechanic and a bold one. Just, hey, this NPC will stop existing in the world if you take too long.
Now, is this actually a timer, or is it based on, does that timer go down based on steps or like real world seconds?
It goes down based on time, real world time. So It's not truly real world. It's, however many days. I forget the metric in game, but it's
so it is an in-game metric.
Yeah, but it's a pretty obvious one. Like, it's pretty obvious what it translates to. It's not it's not cryptic. So, yeah, really unique mechanic. But what's our number 1? You explained it best.
That's going to be Loop Hero. Just the entirety of Loop Hero. We talked about it last week. I won't go over it too much because we really did cover that entire part of the conversation. Just flipping an idle game completely on its head, because at its very core, that's what it is. It's doing what an idle game does. You just let the whatever the action is, you let it happen, and you are passively given income, and you spend that income to get more income passively. That's what every idle game does. I mean, like, I think it was Double Fine did, it's a game about passive income. I forget. Don't worry. Anyhow, it's just doing that, but making it an active, almost, well, you can pause it, so not real time, but a very active strategy game. I wouldn't have expected anything like that to be engaging at all, let alone awesome. As engaging as something like Loop Hero. It's totally unique, and I definitely recommend giving it a try. And just aside from the mechanic, pretty much everything else about the game is nearly perfect. Definitely check it out. But if you're looking for one of the more interesting games this year, check out Loop Hero.
Absolutely. Moving on, best place to be. This is the best
is a good
atmosphere, one. A place you want to inhabit and just go back to. Our number 3 choice is Death's Door. And that's just because it's despite the, honestly sometimes difficult theme of death and fear of death, the characters are very Zelda-esque. This is what this game is going for, a Zelda-like game. And characters are very silly. My favorite character, I don't think I told you about this, my favorite character in the whole game is the character they give you to kind of tell you where some secrets are. Like, if you have missed them, he's like, hey, I heard a rumor that, this is this. So you go and eat a meal, and it's a sailor. So he's got, his little, like, yellow rain hat and, his raincoat and stuff. It's a sailor, but he's dead. He's completely dead. His eyes are no longer there. He's completely dead. And what it really is his best friend, who is a squid, holding him up and and moving his arms and going and trying to convince
Weekend
people.
at Bernie's.
Yeah, it's Weekend at Bernie's. Like, oh man, my human thumbs are so good at holding spoons, and like, it's just like that, and just these delightful characters to be around.
That's nice.
That's my favorite.
No, I
character
did
by
not
far.
heard about that. Hear about that.
There's
heard
one
about Pothead. I like.
Yeah,
Pothead
Pothead's great. There's a character with a pot on his head.
No,
sorry, his pot is literally a head.
Correct.
I should say.
Or his head is literally a pot.
Yeah.
With soup in it, cooking. He's not wearing.
And he offers
a pot.
it to you. It's just like the crow's like, no, thank you.
Man, I hate that I missed this. I skipped this game.
It's delightful. So yeah, Death's Door is definitely my number 3 choice. It's a delight.
Yeah, I'm happy to not make an argument here. Very weird selection. I was not expecting us to not only put this game up for discussion, but agree on it. Loop Hero. You really have to play it. You can't see it. You can't really hear people talk about it. You have to do it. But inhabiting Loop Hero, whatever that means, because it's not like an immersive game.
No, not at all.
At least it's not trying to be, but weirdly enough, it is. And it's so hard to quantify.
Much of it's that art style. The characters, each portrait is so evocative.
Yeah.
We talked about how, you can look at the first girl that you meet, who is kind of taking care of the camp for you. And her face is so warm and so weary. Everything is spoken through that face. It's just a place I like being. Going back to camp at the end of a loop is so... Like, I sometimes just stop for a second. Like, I'm back. I'm home. Like, it's really good.
It's so interesting how they were able to achieve that. I don't even know if that's like a goal of theirs, but we both just got sucked into that place.
Absolutely.
But number 1, I don't really think could go to anything else.
I can't
gotta
wait.
be Sable.
Can't wait to play it.
Please play Sable. I will do whatever I can to play Rain World, or we should just make an episode of it. Dude, Rain World and Sable. Bruh. Ooh, Rain World.
Two very inverse places to inhabit.
Yes. I don't think that would be a very good episode though. But Sable. I can't really talk any more about it. I said a lot last week. That's the catch up episode. We experienced a lot of stuff that took us by surprise. So a lot of rehash conversations. But Sable, I think, is the only thing that has been able to achieve what makes Breath of the Wild such a wholly unique experience, unlike anything else that that we've had in the industry so far. Breath of the Wild's exploration is so emotional and personal, and Sable capitalizes on that completely. So being there in the dunes of whatever that planet is called, that's got to be number one.
I'm so excited to play it. I'll let you take away this next category, though.
Okay, maybe even these next two. No, you got some stuff to say there.
Yeah.
Cool little things. This was not an official category on the MinMax podcast or the MinMax show, but they just Ben Hansen just said something sort of offhandedly. He's like, yeah, every year you've got that one little thing that is not going to take away anybody's list, but it's good to give a mention to. Some years there's a lot of those things. Okay, so let's make it a whole category. The coolest little things. And all of these, I'm the only one who's played any of these. Hopefully Zach will go back and play at least one of them. Number 3 here, Before Your Eyes. I had no idea about Before Your Eyes until I listened to that podcast. I immediately downloaded it and played it. It's an hour and a half, a game that you literally play by blinking. It is a very passive experience. It's barely even a game. But you're living out the character's life is flashing before his eyes, literally. And you set up your camera, you calibrate your blinks to make sure it's registering your blinks correctly, and you start the game. And every scene in the character's life, from birth to adulthood, is being told to you. But every time you blink, it's going to skip to the next scene. And there is an intentional narrative that's being told there. But it's not really holding your hand through that. It's going to start the scene, and it's not going to wait for all of the important parts to play out. Very soon after it starts the scene, you'll see a little symbol on the bottom of the screen that warns you next time you blink, you will move on to the next chapter of the character's life. And then they introduce some very slight variations with that. It's barely a mechanic, I know, but what they were able to achieve there, and then you heard me talk about it last week, the ending is such a tiny little masterstroke. I loved it. Absolutely loved it. So Before Your Eyes is number 3 there. Unpacking as number 2. Again, huge surprise. Literally one very simple mechanic. There are boxes in this room that you just moved into. Unpack the boxes. Sometimes you had to put your underwear in with your GameCube. Those don't go together, obviously. You might have, your tampons with the macaroni and cheese that you took from your pantry. Those don't go together, so you got to move it over to another room and put everything there. And a story starts to be told about this character. Well, rather, a character starts to reveal herself to you, and you live out, close to 20 years of this character's life. And the story they're able to weave there was awesome. I had no idea that was going to happen. I completely wrote this game off. Obviously, I saw it was cute. I knew it was going to be fun, and a sort of heartfelt little thing. But I didn't know that was going to happen. So, Unpacking as number 2 there. Number 1, however, you also heard me talk about last week. That is X-01, the marble space adventure. Absolutely bizarre. I was already interested in the game. I knew it would be a fun little thing to just sort of zone out to for an hour or so, which I did. I clocked in the first playthrough at just like a couple seconds under 2 hours. It's very short, but I didn't know they were going to be able to shake up the mechanics in that way. I was not expecting that, and just the incredible presentation. It's so awesome. I said last week, I didn't think even more than something like Outer Wilds, which someone might try to make the argument is trying to make you feel like the exploration of Interstellar. Now, this game, some of it feels like those huge set piece moments, like the ice, the water going through a black hole in Interstellar. This game's doing all that, and it feels incredible. So, the most interesting little things, X01's got to be number one for me. I guess I'll take away the next discussion as well after a quick drink of water.
Yeah, so this is going to be the best human experiences.
Yeah, another trend we noticed this year.
Yeah.
A lot of narratives that are just, they're gentle. I think that's the best word to describe them. I added one here, Sable. I, again, talked about it last week, but the writing has taken me aback at how carefully it is written. And I don't mean like each word is chosen very carefully, which it is, but like it's just such a gentle handwriting. You can feel it. And that's also true of something like Unpacking Before Your Eyes. These are all things that are telling very human experiences, are eliciting very real emotions. I don't mean something like, we've heard a lot about the narrative of Guardians of the Galaxy. It's a great narrative. It's about camaraderie, and all of that comes across. Sure. But I doubt that is such a distilled human experience as either of those three small games we mentioned. But go ahead and talk about the next two, probably the biggest two games.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously we have Psychonauts 2, and that's just an obvious, like, it's very much approaching mental health and the human condition in a very gentle and respectful way. It's never heavy-handed. It's never unresearched. It's incredibly insightful.
It's not some huge commentary. It's some important commentary on the subject, but the way the subject is handled is so loving.
And it's so seamless. Like you said, it's not like they're not throwing it in your face that this is about this issue. Like, it's very much, this is a person. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of baggage and a lot of stuff because they're a person. Like, that's just how it is. Let's see if we can help them. It's fantastic. And the medium has the same approach. There are some really screwed up and difficult things in the medium. And the way they approach it is always with the proper modicum of respect and introspection. Both really just care about people, and it's nice to see.
Yes, I'm very happy to have noticed that trend this year. I hope we get more of that. We have in previous years. This is a trend that has been culminating. I think this year was a pretty big year for that. We've had things like Florence in the past. That was maybe 3 years ago. One of my absolute favorites being Sayonara Wild Hearts. I think that's probably one of the best examples of that in the medium. I think that's...
That final moment gets me every time.
Yeah. Sayonara Wild Hearts, I really do think is a little drop of perfection. A lot of walking sims do that. Firewatch, probably top of its game. Though
Edith Finch
is doing a lot. I think holistically, though, if we're
the way it approaches her whole family is just
yes. And then I love Edith Finch because of the really that one level with the mechanical storytelling, like the way it uses the actual player input. There's only one other game I've ever played that does that, and that is Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons. A lot of games marry its story and narrative, but taking it a step further for the actual player input to help tell the story, almost nothing does that. But when we're just talking about humans and how raw they can be, the emotions they have, Firewatch is very, very good at that. and this year had a lot of examples. We didn't play. It might be on this list, so please don't kill us. Oh shoot, what's it called? That sort of episodic game. Dang it. The previous two had that like high school girl. Life is Strange. There we go. Life is Strange. Whatever this year's
Colors.
Yeah, True Colors. That's right. That might very well be on the list. I'm actually kind of bummed I skipped out on that. If it's pretty short, I might pick it up here soon. But yeah, it's been a good year for that, man. I'm happy to see it. Let's move on to the heavy hitter. This is what anyone who has stuck around this long is actually here for. So thank you, friend.
Yeah, we're talking Game of the Year. Game of the Year
2021.
Before we get there, what are some of your personal favorites, Tyler? What are just some things that for you, like this is not the unpatched pick. What do you like from 2021?
Number 3, we hashed this out before. Oh, did we change this? Did we officially change it? No. Cool. Number 3 for me.
Tyler really was vacillating on a couple.
Yes. But we talked about it. I had to put it there. So It Takes Two is number 3 for me. I've talked about it enough. I love the story there. Sure, the book, he can be very annoying. I get it, but it's fun through and through. I think it's the best 3D platformer this year, and I love the story. It hits home for me because I've experienced that. I even feel some of it. As I mentioned, I'm sort of scared of becoming Cody. Yeah, I think it's a very special little game. Not so little, actually.
Yeah.
I do agree. It overstays its welcome. 1 or 2 levels could be cut or just cut in half because I actually like all of the mechanics with one
Me
exception. So really they just need to be shortened.
Kingdom, the little elephant's kingdom. It's a good level.
Oh, that's good. And then I forgot to put that on best moments. That may have made the list.
That's might be number 1.
Yeah, that's got to be an honorable mention. The elephant princess, you are trying to make your daughter cry because you think that's going to break... How did we not talk about this? You think that's going to break the spell of you being turned into a toy. She has a favorite toy. So you think by destroying that toy, you're going to make her cry. But the entire realm of her toys has been brought to life. And her little stuffed elephant is so cute and is introduced like welcoming you into the kingdom. And then May's like, come on, we gotta kill her, Cody. And the princess is like, what? You're here to kill me? And she runs away, like waddles away. And you like hit her with something in the back of the head, and then she she gets in a rocket. Claw. She gets in a rocket that hits something and crashes into the claw machine.
And you got to get her with the claw machine, take her out.
Yeah, you got to grab her head with the claw machine, and then you got to pull her out of the claw machine, but you're a little small, so it's kind of awkward. And her leg gets stuck, and you tear off her leg. So now she's missing a leg. She's crying in agony, and you're dragging her along this dresser. You're on the top of a dresser to throw her off and kill her. And then something falls, and a tack comes and sticks in her ear. And instead of walking over to remove the tack, May's like, no, pull.
You like pull
it. Rip her ear off, and you get to the edge, and she's struggling to hold on. No, please don't do it.
It's rough.
And you like Mufasa her,
yeah,
or Scar, like yeah. Scar.
It's really rough. It's really terrible.
Rough. And then they go down to her daughter. And she's crying. She just walked into the room.
And they're bathing
as the rain pours down.
Like, and Cody's like shaking his butt in it. Like it's so overdone. I love
crazy. Yeah, at the very least, an honorable mention. I can't believe we forgot that.
Yeah.
It Takes Two, number 3 for me.
Yeah, that's a great choice. For me, number 3 is Inscription. Daniel Mullen's Inscription. A lot of people are going to be turned off by the disjointed, weird 3-act structure. huge turn on for me. Like I really like the way he structures games. It did it for me. Obviously, the first act is impeccable, and the other two I think are incredibly mechanically sound and delights to play. The way he tells his story and how goofy it is too. It checks most of the Zach boxes. It checks most of the Zach boxes. So I was that's my number 3 for sure.
If I could just play Act 1, it would probably be my number 1. But alas, as a holistic experience, couldn't make the list.
What's your number 2?
Number 2, RE8. Such a surprise for me. I love Resident Evil Village so much. I think it is probably a perfect game. I can't think of anything wrong with it. It's got silly, dumb stuff in it, but that's fine.
That's not
Embrace
a bad thing.
it.
Yeah.
Embrace it. Who cares?
It is
if you get your
so
hand
fun.
cut off and you literally stick your hand back on and pour juice on it.
From what I've
so
played this
dumb.
year, it's probably my number 5, I think. Yeah,
Number 5.
Absolutely. I think just right up. Yeah.
And then, of course, I've mentioned the first big set piece there with
and the baby.
excuse me, yeah, the baby in the dollhouse. That's incredible. Excuse me. If you listen to our episode on that, I mentioned I think it's weird that it's in the game. It might even be better as like a VR experience removed from the game, just a totally separate, maybe not even called Resident Evil. You know, everything it's doing is perfect. It's just a weird place. But now that I'm saying that again, just knowing what the game is, it touches on 4 very distinct horror genres.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I guess it's kind of fair that it's there. But it's such a step above from everything else and so different.
It's very crazy.
It's a
It's
little
so
jarring.
good. It's way too good, honestly.
It's incredible.
It's the best thing, the best PT experience since PT. Like
Probably
really
even more so than Visage.
I think so. Absolutely. Even the first act of Visage, which is the strongest, I'd say.
Yeah.
So anyway, moving on for me, my number 2 pick this year is Returnal. I was addicted to this game. Like I said, 100%ed it. I could not stop playing it. It's so well crafted. We've already talked about every little aspect of design that makes this game stand out. Returnal is a truly special experience developed by a development team at the top of their game. There is really nothing like it this year. What's your number 1 pick personally, Tyler?
Number 1 would probably be number 1 by a very long mile. I think they call that a country mile.
Country Mile.
Correct. If I have had the opportunity to finish it, I have not yet. I will. It's my number 1 priority in the off time around these episodes. But that's Sable. Talked about it last week. Again, you said you got a little emotional just me telling you what kind of game it is. It's unlike anything else. I mean, there's only one other thing like it, and that's Breath of the Wild. And if you put 150 hours into Breath of the Wild, more than that maybe, it's not because of the combat. It's not because of the characters in the story. You know why you did that. Sable's the only thing that you've had the chance to experience that again in. Please play Sable. Please give it a chance.
So my number 1 is Everhood. Very easy pick for me this year because of how emotionally resonant it was for me. But on top of that, I mean, you just got a great game with a super original combat system. Some of the craziest moments. I could have picked a million, but I just had to pick one for my 5 list of moments. But when the gnome dance, where the whole screen starts going nuts, and then the 2 development gnomes start playing tennis with another gnome's head. Like, it's just bizarre.
It's very weird.
Very trippy. All the mushroom sequences are fantastic. And again, the emotional resonance, the ideas that it wrestles with about death and fear and not knowing and trust and all these wonderful ideas implemented so well, on top of a really, really strong game that will unfortunately forever get written off as an Undertale clone. I'm pretty sure that's what most people will write it off as when they see it, and that is
It's not
tragedy.
Oh, it's not.
It's really doing so much. So
Where is
my
a
favorite.
Physical release? How has it not been picked up yet?
I don't know. I'm sure First Press will get it because they already did the soundtrack. So
Oh, First Press did the soundtrack.
yeah. So
Keep an eye on that.
Yeah, I think they'll do the physical if there is one. So
Yeah.
and it'll be Switch only. I'm pretty sure.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it'll be Switch only. So
definitely.
But yeah, we get finally to the unpatched top 3. We've already talked about these games enough. We won't really talk too much about them. But why don't you take it away with number 3, Tyler?
Number 3, I had to fight for this one. Just like last year, had to make a
stank.
We make concessions here, and actually number 2 is a pretty big concession. But number 3, It Takes Two. I love it. You know why I love it. I've already talked about it enough this episode. Number 3 unpatched game of the year. It Takes Two.
Yes. Number 2, again, big concession from Tyler. Very grateful. Everhood.
Now, not a huge concession. Actually, it was something. What was it? Until the other night.
What do you mean? What was
we had another game here. Inscription, I think.
Inscription.
It was Inscription. But I listened to the soundtrack of Everhood and was just remembering a lot of it, and then it sparked a pretty big discussion the other night before we recorded last
my
week's
wife
episode.
And a friend
And I really do think it's something special. And if you're looking at the entire experience, Zach and I disagree on how good Inscription is. I love the separate things Inscription is doing. The whole thing, I think, is a very disjointed and jarring experience. To its benefit, Zach argues. To its detriment, I argue. But Everhood as a whole, even though it did not hit, it's not even on the short list. I probably wouldn't put it top 5 for me. But I see it. I see you, Everhood. I totally get it.
So 2 and 3 are pretty interchangeable.
It's a very easy concession to make. And in fact, Zach didn't even argue it. I said I would really.
Yeah,
like
he did, which is I was very grateful for.
Yeah, I think it deserves that spot more than something like Inscription because it is a very special game. There were just things that took me by surprise more so than that.
And I bet you if I had played Sable, that'd be showing up here instead. We'll have to retroactively revisit it. But number 1, if you haven't guessed it by now, what's wrong with you? It's so obvious. It's Returnal. Housemarque, thank you. Thank you for making one of the cleanest, most effective games I have played in a very long time. What a special experience to where someone who's been defeated by it can tip his doff his sword and cap to it.
Yeah, I didn't argue at all. I said, Zach, there's no way it's not Returnal. It's a perfect video game.
Yeah, it's so good.
I can't. It's not even just the best this year. I really do think it might be a perfect video game.
It's so clean. Everything about it is so clean, and it's so fun to play over and over and over again. Your runs can be pretty varied based on the paths you take. It's just a delight to play.
And I love that we didn't put this in mechanics. But I think it's definitely an honorable mention there. The health upgrade system I love. I've not seen that before, where you can get items to heal, but some items heal you 1, 2, and 3 health slots. You can't take much damage at all. But some items heal you 1, 2, or 3, like a small, medium, and large amount of health. So you can leave those in the map. Nothing disappears. No item that drops disappears for the whole game. Which I don't know if that was very possible on other games with the RAM, or other consoles, that is, older ones. But everything just stays there. It's always on the field until you leave the map entirely. So you can leave those large drops you find early in the game and heal yourself with the single drops. Because if you pick up a health potion when you already have full health, it counts to the 1 of 3 you need, 3 slots to permanently increase your health. So if you pick up a medium, it gives you 2. If you already have full health, that is. If you have almost full health, so the health bar is like split into sections, 3 by default. When you increase your health, you have 4 sections. But let's say you're full, or rather you only have 1 section depleted. If you pick up a medium health pack, doesn't it heal you and then give you the 1?
I don't know if it gives you the 1, but it's definitely, you're totally right though, like leaving it back. Regardless, I don't remember exactly.
Yeah, it's just an interesting mechanic. I'd not seen it before. We completely forgot to mention that.
That's a good one. Yeah, there's so many good ideas just packed into this and executed with nothing that I have to go, well, there's this one thing that you have to be, you kind of have to get over. Nothing.
Nope.
There's nothing.
Can't think
it's
of anything about it.
just so clean. So, congratulations, Returnal.
What a good... Dude, launch titles... It's not a launch title for PS5. I get it. It's a hard year, a hard 2 years.
It might as well have been a launch title.
It might as well be the PS5 launch title. Along with Ratchet.
And MLB The Show.
Yeah. And Spider-Man. Spider-Man's an actual launch title.
Miles Morales, yeah.
Yeah. And Sackboy's Adventure.
Demon's Souls.
Demon's Souls, I guess, is
that's
the premier
launch title. That's that was the console seller for them, I think, in their mind.
When did it come out? November? The console, I mean?
In November something. I don't remember exactly.
I would put the first 5 or 6 months of 2021 in the launch.
Yeah, it's been rough. And not everybody, so few people had it.
Yeah, it's a weird year. Really, people are going to be talking about it as one of the launch titles for PlayStation 5.
Really, though, Astro's Playroom, no joke. That's a good game.
I didn't finish that.
That's a delightful game.
Yeah. We didn't consider that, and we should have played it for our 3D platformers. What idiots.
Oh, that's, yeah.
Why didn't we play that?
It's so good. The final boss is the T-Rex from the original PS1 demo. Like the original.
I don't know that.
The first thing they used to really showcase the PS1's like polygons and 3D rendering was just this T-Rex that's walking.
Like a chicken?
Like, no, like, yeah, kind of like that. But like, its head bobs a little bit. Like, it just looks like a T-Rex. But that's what you fight as the final boss of Astro's Playroom. It's like...
That's pretty great.
It's so good.
I love it.
But that's it, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. Congratulations again to Returnal as Unpatched's Game of the Year. Well deserved. You are incredible.
Yeah, an absolute achievement. And we want to thank you, first of all, to anyone that is still listening. A very long episode.
Woo!
A long few episodes with the past, the indie roundup.
Indie, Game of the Year 1, Game of the Year 2.
Yeah, very long episodes. Thanks for sticking around. Thank you to everyone who has joined Discord over the past few months. It's been open. We are going to close it at the launch of the next episode. So not when this one goes live, but when we start the next one, we're going to start pushing Patreon again. We hope you'll think about joining us, because the production here, it's pretty low, but we've invested a lot. We really love what we're doing here. It's so much fun, and we love talking to you guys. Had a few of you join the Discord and start pushing some interesting games, talking about the games that we love or didn't like, even telling us why we're wrong, because we want to know why we're wrong. So just thank you. Thanks for joining the community. It's a small, budding place, but we are trying to build a friendly environment of people that just love games. There are things surrounding video games that are hard to talk about. I understand, you might not always want to support Ubisoft. You might not always want to support, Activision, but there are people making the games as well, which should be considered. We want to remove those things. We want to remove sometimes the individual creators and just talk about this finished product that people did work so hard on. And you're here to talk about those. So thank you. Come join us. Check out the description for the link to our Discord. And please do not ever forget to share what you love with who you love.